Chapter 1684. In an instant, violent winds howled at the bottom of the sea. More than half of the blood chi had dissipated. Around the storm, obscure and mysterious runes flickered and shone brilliantly. With a slight movement of his finger, Su-Yi pointed at the roaring blood-red, demonic dragon from afar. A brilliant ray of light shot out from his eyes. The energy of heaven and earth was drawn out. The white wind attribute energy was like a thunderbolt. It carried unparalleled energy as it charged towards the blood-red, demonic dragon. In a split second, a wave of pressure spread out. It contained an ancient divine aura and shrouded the blood-red, demonic dragon. Whoosh! Shu Long heavenly wind domain. Alive! Su-Yi shouted. His tattered long robe flew up high. The unparalleled aura made Su-Yi look like a god descending from the heavens. The domineering ancient power surged towards the blood-red demonic dragon. Rumble. Within the energy space, the energy of heaven and earth was extremely dense. Within the white storm, Su-Yi's hair flew up high. His body was surrounded by scarlet light. The divine radiance surged and danced like flames. The white storm was surging like a thunderbolt. The soul energy, the pressure of heaven and earth, and the bloody demonic aura were all blown up to the sky by the white storm. In an instant, the entire world was as bright as day. Su-Yi could feel the vitality in his great void spirit ocean being depleted like water. The dantian and spirit ocean in his body began to dry up again. The radiance was like the radiance of the sun. No. I have to hurry to the next step. The Shu Long heavenly wind domain is indeed too exhausting for a demonic beast of this level. Su-Yi frowned. The Iron Soulfish and Duanmu Shaoman were shocked by Su-Yi's method. Such a wind attribute spatial technique was actually used by Su-Yi, who was only at the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm. It was like a prison that tightly bound the blood-red demonic dragon. This brat actually has such a martial technique. The wind and clouds in the sky loosened. The water vapor above their heads gradually produced countless crackling sounds of lightning. The Iron Soulfish was shocked. He squinted his eyes and carefully studied the wind attribute vortex around Su-Yi. His eyes were full of splendor. The surrounding air fluctuated violently. Su-Yi, who was in the center of the storm, was like an ancient god. Light shot out from his eyes. The vortex around him was unceasing. His soul energy had been mobilized to the extreme. A mid-tier Emperor martial technique. A martial technique that only Origin Void Realm could learn. Su-Yi had already comprehended the Heavenly Wind Sword, but he had promised Situ Muyang that he would try his best not to use. But now, under such circumstances, Su-Yi could only take the risk out of desperation. Using this method to temporarily trap the blood-red demonic dragon was the most important thing. The primordial chi was dissipating at a speed visible to the naked eye, the void constantly emitting deafening thunderous booms. The 3 energies that were constantly being dispersed were like cannonballs shooting in all directions. Su-Yi's sword-like eyebrows were raised, and he suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. "Find me! Huh!" Su-Yi continued to mobilize the heavenly origin demon soul. His soul energy surged again. Su-Yi clenched his teeth. He felt a part of the energy gushing out from the divine, profound spirit meridians. It pushed the energy around him away, creating ripples. Su-Yi leaped out again. A ray of soul light shot out from between his eyebrows. The white storm was even more intense. Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed. As for Duanmu Shaoman, who was standing in the air, her frosty eyes had long been replaced by astonishment. Su-Yi, who was at the 4th level Origin Emperor realm, had actually reached 20,000 meters. He was even able to fight side by side with her. Such talent was unprecedented in the Yuqian Palace. If there was only one name in Duanmu Shaoman's mind. Duanmu Qingtian. Qingtian, is that you? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with countless images. Her nose turned sour. Her mind was in turmoil. A surge of qi and blood rushed up and flowed down from the corner of her mouth. Looking at Su-yi, who was resisting the pressure of heaven and earth in the storm, with resolute determination in his eyes, Duanmu, Xiaoman's heart trembled. She muttered softly, "Not good. This guy is actually using the soul pressure to forcefully squeeze out his energy. This is a serious injury to his meridians." The corner of Duanmu, Xiaoman's mouth twitched. She pondered and made a decision. Her mind whirled. The mysterious hand seals in her hands changed. The water attribute energy in the air once again exploded, preparing to charge forward. There was a loud sound of wind and thunder. The sky was filled with snow and white storm. The blood-red demonic dragon's body started to distort. The massive blood chi was like a mini storm, spreading to every corner. This demonic dragon's blood chi is so dense. Su, he shouldn't be able to hold on for long. We can't let him continue like this. He will definitely be crippled. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, the white storm in front of Su-yi was like a pillar. The blood-red demonic dragon's demonic energy was still as boundless and sharp as before. Its blood claws constantly attacked the storm, and a terrifying blood moon-like light gradually began to penetrate through the white storm. In addition to Duanmu Xiaoman's energy, the blood-red dragon was slightly delayed. Su-yi's complexion was gloomy like water. As he looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful face, Su-yi's lips curved up in a smile. Anyone could guess that Su-yi's next move would be his ultimate move. At this moment, Su-yi was resolute to the extreme. Duanmu, prepare to attack. Remember, if you leave this place, please do as you promised. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Boy, your Yuan Qi has been exhausted. Just relying on your soul energy is absolutely not enough. Do you still want to use that ball of light? The soul puppet shouted. Before the soul puppet's voice fell, Su-yi had already taken a step forward. The mysterious ball of light in his body had already loosened, and like Mercury, it crazily attacked Su-yi's divine, profound spiritual veins. Su-yi's aura surged again. His eyes flashed with a sharp light. He spat out a mouthful of turbid air, and his face slightly changed. Roar! Su-yi roared. In the next moment, a tyrannical wave of air suddenly gushed out from his body. In the wind and snow, an earth-shaking dragon's roar proudly roared. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful figure suddenly stopped. Her face was filled with shock. A golden dragon stretched across the sky. A strong wind swept out, and a golden light filled the air. Looking at Su-yi again, the heavenly origin demon soul in his body was already like a scorching golden sun. The golden dragon's shadow in front of him was roaming in all directions. The golden light sprinkled between heaven and earth like a rain of light. Su-yi, who was enveloped by the divine light, was enveloped by the divine light. Su-yi, whose face could not be seen clearly, seemed to be covered by a layer of golden armor. He was mighty and agile. Only the murderous aura that filled the whole sky poured out along with the golden light. The next move was definitely Su-yi's last killing move. It was undoubtedly more ferocious than before. The golden dragon soared across the sky. A terrifying beast's roar burst out. Smoke and dust scattered everywhere. The aura that could pierce through clouds and split rocks made Duanmu Xiaoman's heart and soul tremble uncontrollably. The loud sound pierced through the sky. The sky was filled with wind and thunder. Under the golden rain of light, the golden dragon's eyes emitted a disdainful look. Its terrifying aura was extremely shocking. It was like an immemorial divine beast that suppressed billions of lives in the world. It connected heaven and earth and destroyed everything. Today I will see who is the real dragon, who is the master of heaven and earth. Chapter 1685. Su-yi let out an angry roar. The golden dragon suppresses the sky, and the mighty destructive aura rushed towards the center of the storm like a thunderbolt. The blood-red, demonic dragon inside could clearly feel the unparalleled power of the golden dragon. Its body gradually began to tremble, but it was still making the last tenacious resistance. World-suppressing dragon's soul chant. Break! Su-yi roared angrily. With a shocking roar, the water vapor in the whole world began to surge, and the endless wind caused the air to ripple layer after layer. In an instant, the huge golden dragon shadow followed the direction of Su-yi's soul, and with an earth-shattering dragon roar, it instantly seemed to tear everything apart. The whole world was filled with golden light, and under the terrifying aura, the terrifying energy suddenly blasted towards the center of the storm. The heaven and earth trembled, and the golden dragon roared. Roar! The blood dragon roared, and as if it could feel the horror of this attack, it kept waving its claws. The blood chi around its body began to spread out, and like a matchless energy ball, it quickly exploded in the white storm. The prison-like heavenly wind realm began to shake and was about to break. This is not good. If we don't save Su-yi, he will die. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of panic. As a half-step Yuan Tian expert, she knew what kind of terrifying power Su-yi was using, and she knew better than anyone else what kind of fatal consequences this attack would bring. I don't want you to be the second person to make me sad. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed, and her clear eyes were overflowing with pearl-like light. The wind and snow under her feet flew up. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful figure swiftly flew to Su-yi's side. At this time, inside the entrance, the iron soulfish was sitting in the pool, feeling that the yuan qi in his divine spirit veins had been exhausted to the extreme. It made him feel very thirsty. His face gradually became pale, and he kept murmuring, it's over, I haven't reincarnated yet. I will be completely played to death by this brat. The iron soulfish didn't expect that Su-yi would bring him through life and death situations after following Su-yi for such a long time. Su-yi was simply a fearless person. It was a rare sight among humans. Even in such a critical moment, Su-yi was still thinking about others. He used the energy of the mysterious ball of light to unleash this earth-shattering move. The soul puppet beast's eyes froze. From afar, a white light was flying towards it. Its body trembled, and it whispered, "My life is over." In the blink of an eye, Duanmu Xiaoman, who was flying over, had a grave expression on her face as she watched the golden dragon charge and the white storm collide. Duanmu Xiaoman's palms flew out together, and a violent wind of water elements swept down, engulfing Su-yi's head, hoping to temporarily dissipate a portion of the energy. Thousand frost, godly, snow seal, ice soul seas. In just a short moment, Su-yi, who had completely lost consciousness and had his meridians occupied by the mysterious ball of light, suddenly felt his vision turn white. He could feel an extremely strong soul pressure rushing into the heavenly origin demon soul. As soon as the ice soul seas entered his body, the mysterious ball of light instantly flowed into Duanmu Xiaoman's body through her palms like a broken dam. In a split second, a fierce and domineering aura from the ancient world spread out. This power is... Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes widened. In the next second, the terrifying energy rushed into Duanmu Xiaoman's meridians and bones. For a moment, Duanmu Xiaoman couldn't digest it all. The excess energy instantly gathered at her chest and was about to burst out along her meridians. PFFF. The majestic energy began to rupture from her chest, and the monstrous energy instantly burst open several meridians. Duanmu Xiaoman spat out a large mouthful of blood. Roar! The void rumbled, and the storm shook. Not far away, Shulong's heavenly wind realm completely collapsed. Two completely different dragon roars resounded through the sky. The tyrannical and destructive energy light waves, one gold and one red, were instantly wrapped in dazzling light. Roar! Roar! The sound shook the sky. The blood-colored demonic dragon was swallowed by the golden dragon. Then, the two phantoms overlapped, shocking one's soul. In a short while, the blood-colored phantoms rushed out, roaring and baring their fangs and claws. Their appearance was already indistinguishable. The demonic dragon, which had turned into a ball of blood, carried a terrifying meteorite-like force and instantly crashed violently. Bang, bang, bang. Su-yi, who had lost the control of the mysterious ball of light, had already recovered. Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was covered in blood, like a proud plum blossom in the snow, sad and beautiful, his heart immediately thumped. In a moment of desperation, Su-yi spread out his remaining soul pressure, and the attribute energy of the crimson water heaven crystal instantly gathered in front of his palm. Ha! Su-yi lightly hit the back of Duanmu Xiaoman's heart. Instantly, a terrifying energy gathered together. The two of them were tightly linked together, like a pair of immortal lovers made of jade. Duanmu Xiaoman's white dress was stained with spots of red. Su-yi's ragged clothes made his well-defined muscles look masculine. Amidst the raging winds and huge waves, the milky white light reflected each other. In the storm condensed by the wind and snow, the energy of the mysterious ball of light and the crimson water heaven crystal had already reached the peak. The sky changed color, and the wind and snow attacked. Bang, bang, roar. Thousand frost, godly snow seal, ice luan kill. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with murderous intent. After absorbing the mysterious energy and a portion of the crimson water heaven crystal's energy, an extremely ancient and savage aura descended in front of the two of them. An ice luan phantom that almost occupied the entire seabed of the Broken Sword Sea gave off boundless energy waves as it flapped its wings. Whoosh! Destructive icicles gathered crazily like pillars and immediately charged at the blood-colored demonic dragon. Duanmu Xiaoman ignored the surging blood and qi in her body. In a short instant, a palm print had already pierced through the air. The ice luan phantom created terrifying waves in the air, destroying everything in its path. Crack, crack! Heaven and earth collapsed, and the space shattered into cracks. The blood-colored demonic dragon's incomparably huge body finally cracked in the shattered void and suddenly exploded, completely destroyed. Boom, boom, boom. Violent blood-colored ripples rippled crazily as if they were solid. The aura destroyed everything, and it couldn't calm down for a long time. Su-yi turned around and protected Duanmu Xiaoman tightly in front of him. Su-yi knew that Duanmu Xiaoman was weaker than anyone else at this moment, and she needed protection more than anyone else. TSK, TSK. Amidst the wind and snow, the white seabed sealed in ice for thousands of miles. Two figures hugged each other and fell like two birds with broken wings. Duanmu Xiaoman had already lost all her vital energy and soul power when she landed in the white crevice that looked like a ravine. The world was silent. After an incomparably shocking and intense battle, the ruins had already been buried by the white snow. Duanmu Xiaoman's face was tightly pressed against Su-yi's body. She closed her eyes and listened to Su-yi's rapidly increasing heartbeat. Amidst the wind and snow, Su-yi's body was like a ball of fire, incomparably warm. Duanmu Xiaoman's heart instantly melted. Duanmu Xiaoman's brows furrowed slightly. She sensed that something was wrong, and she struggled to ask about Su-yi's situation. Su-yi. Chapter 1686. Pooh! A mouthful of blood flowed out from Su-yi's back. The dark and viscous blood spread throughout the snow and instantly soaked the vast expanse of whiteness. Su-yi's eyes were solemn. His heavy breathing lingered in Duanmu Xiaoman's ears. Immediately, Duanmu Xiaoman involuntarily began to emit some weak moans. Duanmu Xiaoman already had no strength left. Her meridians were damaged, and she did not have any strength left. Her pale face was filled with panic. This was the first time she was lying in a ravine with a man. She was extremely embarrassed and struggled to get up. The moist ground caused her hands to be powerless. In an instant, she was like a little rabbit in a tiger's den. Lying on Su-yi's burning body, she did not dare to move. "You're injured. It's the demonic dragon's poisonous blood." Her beautiful crimson face was tightly pressed against Su Yi's chest. She could feel the hot blood flowing in his meridians, bringing with it a slight, evil aura. Huff, huff. Su Yi was panting heavily. His divine sense had already begun to blur. The poisonous blood had spread to his heavenly origin demon soul. Countless fantasies appeared in front of his eyes. Between the peach blossoms and willows, it was filled with the beauty of a jade body. Duanmu Xiaoman was tightly pressed to the ground by Su Yi. Her soft body was fiercely grabbed. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's chest was violently rising and falling. She simply could not be bothered to be angry. Her delicate brows were tightly knitted together as she tilted her head to the side. Her eyes were unreal and confused. In Su Yi's eyes, Duanmu Xiaoman was so beautiful. From his dry throat, the sound of swallowing saliva could be heard. Between the two's firm and strong strength, the intertwining of masculine qi was so captivating. The panic-stricken Duanmu Xiaoman instantly opened her eyes. Her delicate brows slightly knitted together as she stared at the rough Su Yi. She said weakly, "Su Yi, don't be like this. You treat him first." Duanmu Xiaoman knew that it must be the poisonous blood of the blood-red dragon that was causing trouble inside Su Yi's body. The tremendous blood power was quickly flowing out of Su Yi's pores. Duanmu could feel that Su Yi's meridians were much thicker than normal people's. Even though the blood qi couldn't harm his meridians, Su Yi's meridians were much thicker. However, the poisonous gas contained within it was capable of messing with one's mind. If he didn't use the art of driving the heavens to control his soul, he would definitely lose control of his soul, and the evil poison would attack his heart, making it difficult for him to extricate himself. In light cases, their souls would split apart. In serious cases, they would go insane and die. There are only two ways to save this brat. One is to forcefully control his soul and expel the poisonous blood. The iron soulfish shook his head and looked at the poisoned Su Yi with a grave expression. The broken sword cliff was filled with the smell of blood. The surging seawater indicated that a terrifying battle was taking place below. The other disciples of the soul race of driving the heavens had also finished their matches as fast as they could under Su Yi's instructions. They had all gone ashore after finishing their matches. The people of Lingua Peak were also there, but they were all in a sorry state. "Father, save Su Yi. Su Yi is still down there." Han Yuro didn't care about her sorry state as soon as she got ashore. She ran to Han Wulong's side and sobbed. The people who were watching the screen were overjoyed that Su Yi had reached the 20,000-meter mark. However, their eyes suddenly trembled. They didn't expect that everyone had already gotten ashore. It was much shorter than expected. When Junhao Ian and Z Feng returned, everyone's hearts were in their throats. When Han Yuro and the others came back, Han Wulong rushed to Han Yuro's side. His broad muscles hugged Han Yuro and said in a deep voice, "Bro, what happened down there? Tell me, where is Su Yi? Where did he go?" Han Yuro sobbed. She pointed at the raging waves and said in a trembling voice, "Father, it's all blood down there." Suddenly, a lot of blood came up. After saying that, Han Yuro's eyes were filled with fear as if she had seen something terrifying. She covered her ears and cried loudly. "Blood!" All the elders' eyes were filled with doubt. At the same time, their faces were gloomy. Han Wulong squinted his eyes and frowned. He said softly, "Don't worry, Ro. Tell me. I will take care of it." Then, Han Yuro and Tian Wu explained the situation to everyone. The people who were cultivating pills at the 4,000-meter mark already felt that something was wrong. After the blood-sword fruit was formed and the seven-fiend soul ring was swallowed by the blood-red demonic dragon, the seven-fiend seal was lifted. Endless blood qi and demonic aura surged up. Many of the disciples who were cultivating were affected. At this time, Su Yi came over with the blood demon killing god sword. He pushed away the blood qi and told everyone to quickly leave. Then, Su Yi ignored everyone's advice and flew down to Duanmu Xiaoman's side. After everyone healed each other, they quickly went ashore. Everyone looked dispirited and pale. Han Wulong's expression immediately turned cold. His battle intent surged as he said to go, Elder you should know the general situation. But there must be a shocking demonic creature down there. Su is still down there. I must go down. Guyue was also burning with anxiety. It wasn't just Su Yi. Palace Master Duanmu was also down there. He quickly walked in front of the light screen. Guyue's eyes lit up. Su Yi and the Palace Master's light has already disappeared. Guyue's eyes widened in disbelief. What? Elder vassal and teaching elders spread out their souls one after another. The entire cliff was filled with an extremely terrifying soul pressure that shook the heavens and oppressed the entire area. Su Yi, father, you have to save Su Yi. Nothing can happen to Su Yi. He went down to save everyone. Han Yuro covered her face and wept bitterly. Her heart was filled with panic, and her tears fell like rain. Li Shiran, Chu, and the others walked over and comforted her. However, the siblings' expressions were also very unnatural. They were worried. Tian Ho, who was standing to the side, was similarly shocked. The massive change that had occurred below was not something he could have imagined. When we were told to leave, Su Yi was covered in blood. How come his light has disappeared now? We have to save the Palace Master. The Palace Master is the foundation of Heavenly Command Palace. We can abandon anyone, but not the Palace Master. The ordinary elders worked together. It had not been easy for Duanmu to come out and solve Zhuqiufeng's problem. They rolled up their sleeves and prepared to charge down the Broken Sword Sea. Bullshit. You think we can give up on Su Yi? Han Wulong roared. The golden dragon runes behind him spread, and a faint dragon roar resounded. Then Han Wulong turned and looked at the silent and imposing Elder Guyue. Elder Guyue, say something. Boom. All of you, shut up. How are you going to save him? How many of you can reach 20,000 meters? If the Palace Master can't deal with the devil, then it will be a disaster for Heavenly Command Palace, or even the entire Cloud Prefecture. Can a few of you turn the tide? You just be throwing your lives away. Guyue continued. Su Yi saved all of Heavenly Command Palace's disciples, and he continues to take risks for Heavenly Command Palace. How can we not save him? Chapter 1687. As soon as Guyue said that, everyone immediately shut their mouths. They were dejected and annoyed as they stared at the broken sword ocean in a daze. Sect Master Han, I'll go down with you. Guyue's robe fluttered in the wind. His kind and gentle face was filled with killing intent as a beam of light shot out. Han Wulong stood behind him, his imposing figure towering over the world. After careful consideration, he realized that it was too late to return to the immeasurable sect to call for reinforcements. He waved his hand and roared, All right, let's go. Immeasurable sect disciples, protect the people of Lingyue Peak. Yes. The immeasurable sect experts accepted the order and stood in front and behind Han Yuro and Li Shiran. Then, the two strode toward the cliff. Immediately, the light curtain in the sky surged. The light curtain weaved by Duanmu Xiaoman began to shake violently. In an instant, heaven and earth trembled. The dark clouds in the distance rapidly gathered, piling up layer after layer. An obscure, murderous aura quickly condensed, and the smell of a natural disaster instantly descended upon the broken sword ocean. An unparalleled soul pressure began to pervade the heaven and earth. Countless tiny cracks began to grow on the light curtain. As everyone looked over, a huge arc of light suddenly burst out along the crack, catching everyone off guard. The light curtain burst, shaking the mountains and rivers. Retreat! Get out of the way! Guyue and Han Wulong's pupils shrank as they shouted in unison. An unparalleled pressure filled the heaven and earth, accompanied by extremely rich heaven and earth energy, suddenly exploded on the surface of the sea. In just a short moment, countless beams of light struck each of the Yuan Qi light shields, bringing with them a violent energy. Puff! Blood mist rose one after another into the sky. Some of the people with lower cultivation were immediately lying on the edge of the cliff. Their faces were extremely pale, and their souls were shaking nonstop. Hundreds of people's light shields rose up, and the incomparably resplendent light pillars shone upon the faces of the people who were in extreme fear and shock. The light curtain is broken. The light curtain is actually broken. Could it be that Palace Master Duanmu has already? This incomparably terrifying thought instantly lingered in everyone's hearts. This was the destruction that Duanmu had set up before the match. Everyone knew what this destruction signified. Gu Yue and Han Wulong reacted in time, but they couldn't resist such a monstrous soul suppression. Their faces were pale, and their auras were weakened to different degrees. They stared at the light curtain, their eyes fluctuating. "Shut up, all of you!" Gu Yue shouted. Buzz! Sonic booms rang out incessantly from the churning seawater. The surging waves of soul energy caused countless spatial ripples to ripple violently. On the surface of the sea, wind and clouds intertwined, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. An incomparably ferocious energy swept out like a tornado. In an instant, it was as if the end of the world had arrived. The soul defenses of several hundred people were completely destroyed, and waves of painful cries rang out. Gu Yue, Han Wulong, and the others shouted, "Disperse! Everyone, activate the defensive barrier." All the soul cultivators at the origin ancestor realm and above saw the abyss-like fluctuations in the surrounding air. Waves of intense soul pressure immediately rippled out in the air. The seawaters surged, and the golden pressure pierced through the torrential broken sword sea. Instantly, violent energy spread out. Roar! In an instant, an earth-shattering energy swept across the world. In the incomparably violent wind, a golden dragon shook the sky, whistling as it broke through the accumulated dark clouds. Golden light filled the air, and a vast and ancient aura directly pierced through the nine heavens. It was as if it was suppressing billions of lives in the world and overlooking the world with monstrous golden energy. The golden dragon that was surrounded by golden light stretched for hundreds of meters, and under the aura of the golden dragon, the surging waves in the broken sword sea looked like ripples in the mountains and rivers. The air ripples that appeared on the surface of the sea also seemed as if a bomb had been thrown in. Under the continuous collisions of energy, everyone was instantly dumbfounded. From head to toe, every part of their skin was trembling from the depths of their souls. As if connecting the heavens and the earth, the majestic aura spread out in all directions. The long roar of the golden dragon reverberated throughout the broken sword sea for a long time. Rumble! Wind and thunder roared and clanged. The sky was filled with electric arcs and halos. Because of the domineering golden dragon that soared into the sky, the clouds dispersed and the sky cleared up. Countless tiny lightning bolts did not have time to dissipate. Beside the mysterious and resplendent golden dragon, there was a natural phenomenon. The monstrous golden light instantly distorted a large area of space. Plop! Everyone seemed to have forgotten the sharp pain in their eardrums because of the roaring sound. They looked at the golden dragon's aura that exploded in the void, shaking the world. Everyone's hair stood on end, and their souls trembled. It was as if they were facing a supreme god, and their souls were so small that they could not be noticed. Many people directly knelt on the ground, looking at the golden dragon in the sky, and kept worshipping. It's a golden dragon. It's a golden dragon. There's a golden dragon in the broken sword sea. Could it be that they are fighting with the golden dragon below? Countless people were amazed. Looking at the golden dragon's light that was about to dissipate in the sky, they shook their heads in disbelief. Everyone could not forget the shock that such a terrifying force brought to their hearts. Among them, only Han Wulong's eyebrows were full of surprise. He clenched his hands tightly and said, "It's out. The commander is out." Gu Yue restrained his aura. The pressure, just now, was too violent. It directly passed through the bottom of the broken sword sea, and it still had such power. There must be an unimaginable battle below. "Let's go. Elder Gu Yue, let's go." Han Wulong was very excited. He did not care about the dispersing qi around him and the uncomfortable qi and blood in his body. He shouted excitedly and stood up. What's going on? What's going on with this golden dragon? Guyue was still in a state of confusion. He quickly stood up and asked. In front of him, the golden dragon's light dissipated and the world began to calm down. The broken sword waves were already surging, and the energy above the void began to lose its obscurity and evil. Instead, it had a clear and righteous feeling. Guyue straightened his face and raised his long eyebrows slightly. Behind him, many of the people were still lying on the ground. Obviously, they had all suffered different degrees of injuries. It was useless to stay here any longer. Guyue said loudly, Everyone, if there is nothing else, you can all go back to the peak before the earthquake and heal your injuries immediately. At the same time, tell Elder Long and Elder Luo about the situation here. Hand over all the cultivation treasures to Elder Luo for safekeeping. Before tomorrow, we will definitely return safely and wait for your summons. As soon as he finished speaking, in the rich energy of heaven and earth, there was a slight fluctuation behind him, and only a dull dong sound resounded through the sky. Guyue could not help but shake his head slightly. It turned out that Han Wulong could not wait any longer and went straight to the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea. Then, Guyue restrained his expression and quickly turned into a rich purple light, appearing in midair. Looking at the Broken Sword Sea below, where the chi and blood had not completely dissipated, he broke into the sea with doubts in his heart. Chapter 1688. In this world of ice, snow filled the sky and fluttered in the air. At the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea, where the violent wind and snow passed, the world was extremely quiet, as if everything was buried in a vast expanse of white. No one would know what had just happened here. After an earth-shattering battle, the bottom of the sea had already undergone earth-shattering changes. There was no more seawater, no more relics, and no more blood and fire that pervaded the world. There was only a scene of devastation and remnants of foul wind and evil chi in the air. There were shocking scars everywhere, and spiderweb-like gullies crisscrossed the world. After the extreme dryness, there was extreme ice and snow. It was just that from one kind of dryness to another kind of dryness, the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea and the Broken Sword Sea of 4,000 to 5,000 meters were two different worlds. Amidst the white snow, the blood that the blood-red demonic dragon had just sprayed onto the ground like plum blossoms. In a certain ravine, a man and woman were tightly connected to each other. Their light and graceful breathing almost blocked out the wind and snow that filled the sky. It was Su Yi who was poisoned by the demon dragon's poison, and Duanmu Xiaoman, who was so weak that she was in a daze. Wherever the snow passed, the breeze blew, and the clothes of the two people were lifted up high. Su Yi, who was tightly pressing Duanmu Xiaoman's hands to the ground, raised his sword-like eyebrows like the stars and the moon. His resolute face was like a blade, stained with masculine blood. Looking at the Duanmu Xiaoman under him, it was as if he was holding her in his arms. Her picturesque appearance was just like the bright moon in March, bright and pure, unparalleled. A pair of watery eyes with a few ripples instantly magnified in his heart, as if they were carrying a myriad of beauties. The close proximity of their ears and temples made the surroundings emit a faint fragrance. He shook his head, as if he had fallen into a dream. When he opened his eyes again, the Duanmu Xiaoman in front of him had turned into two overlapping images. In the white fog, there was a touch of arrogance and loneliness in the distance, as if she was a fairy. Her gauze skirt fluttered with a crisp sound, and her eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Her face was ashen as she coldly said to him, "Presumptuous! I am the palace master of Heavenly Command Palace. Sui, what are you doing? If you dare to defile me, believe it or not, I'll kill your entire clan." Hearing this, Su Yi, who was still in a daze, suddenly had a serious look on his face. He took in a breath of cold air, but in less than a breath of time, the blood in his body surged again, and a blazing hot feeling surged into his heart again. He felt as if countless ants were crawling through his meridians. His throat was extremely dry. He changed the angle of his body and saw another woman standing there. She made a hooking motion with her jade-like hand. The other figure was also Duanmu Xiaoman, but she had a pair of eyes full of flirtatious emotions. Her butterfly eyebrows were bright and beautiful, and her lips were like buds waiting to bloom. Her cheeks were dimpled, and her red lips were lightly pursed. She was extremely charming. In reality, Duanmu Xiaoman's gauze skirt was already faintly discernible. Because her body was lying horizontally, her clothes followed the perfect curve of her body and slid to the sides like silk. The white light was dazzling, and a beautiful scene was unfolding in front of him. Her towering peaks accentuated her slender waist, the overlapping of reality and illusion, making the usually proud and quiet Duanmu Xiaoman appear even more charming and charming, seductive and captivating. Su Yi was momentarily mesmerized by her. Duanmu Xiaoman, you're actually so beautiful. Su Yi's mind was already not clear. Looking at the illusion on his right, who was faintly smiling at him, he unconsciously walked over. In reality, Su Yi turned his head and breathed heavily into Duanmu Xiaoman's right ear. Unconsciously, Duanmu Xiaoman's breathing gradually became hurried. Her graceful waist also gently moved in the snow. In this subtle atmosphere, Duanmu Xiaoman also gradually lost her struggle. Lying limply in the snow, she was like a beautiful fairy. She looked at the handsome Su Yi in a daze and said in a low voice, "Do you like it?" Like resistance, like welcome, like shyness, like excitement, like hesitation, like despair. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes contained 100 knots of worry, but also a warmth that had not been seen in many years. Then, Su Yi gently kissed her neck. Immediately after, a soft and wet touch touched her red lips. Duanmu Xiaoman whispered, "Su Yi, you can't do this." Duanmu Xiaoman's voice was extremely soft for the first time. It was as soft as a mosquito as she whispered in Su Yi's ear. Drip! After saying that, a pearl light gently slid down the corner of Su Yi's eyes. From the corner of his mouth to his eyes, Su Yi tasted the taste of tears. His heart suddenly thumped. Boom! Su Yi's mind trembled violently. The heavenly Yuan demon soul, which was surrounded by blood and qi, shook violently in his mind. Su Yi immediately sobered up for a few breaths. His expression turned serious as a sinister laughter once again sounded in his mind. Don't you want it? Don't you want to possess her? Go. She's right there. Let her enjoy your crotch. Kiki. A ghost-like voice lingered in Su Yi's mind. Su Yi, who was still in a daze a moment ago, suddenly became as heavy as water. Slowly opening his eyes, he saw the desolate Duanmu Xiaoman looking at him pitifully. Her thin and weak body had completely lost its strength. She was heavily pressed down by him. His heart was filled with guilt and sorrow. Su Yi unconsciously loosened his hands. His mouth could not help but say, "Forgive me. I didn't do it on purpose." There was a huge pain in his mind. His limbs, bones, and flesh felt as if they were being burned by fire. It brought a heart-wrenching pain. Who told you to say that? You coward. You're a coward. Go and possess her. Make her happy. That's all you have. Kiki. Looking into his mind, Su Yi's demon soul of Tian Yuan dimmed again. The Yuan Qi in his body seemed to have lost its power and stopped in his wide meridians. The only thing left was a fire burning in his heart, urging Su Yi to do something outrageous again. Duanmu Xiaoman's cheeks flushed red. She looked at Su Yi with a strange expression. It was as if she was smiling yet not smiling, crying yet not crying. In the next second, Su Yi's eyes became abruptly gloomy and ferocious. He looked like a demon from the underworld. Human, do you think you can get rid of me? I said that you want to be my wife. Even if it's this brat's body, I will have you. Su Yi's lips curled into a sinister smile. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was still in a daze, suddenly changed her expression. She could tell that this was the voice of the blood-colored demonic dragon. She immediately woke up. It turned out that Su Yi's heart and soul were beginning to be occupied by the blood-colored demonic dragon. If this continued, Su-yi could be reborn by the blood-colored demonic dragon. Su-yi would also disappear from the world. Su-yi, wake up. Don't be bewitched by it. Duanmu Xiaoman's expression changed slightly. She hurriedly said to Su-yi. Chapter 1689. However, Su-yi felt that the voices around him were like the echoes of a valley, constantly amplifying in his ears. On one hand, they were telling him to continue and release himself, but on the other hand, they were telling him to wake up quickly and not indulge himself. The heavenly origin demon soul in his mind felt as if it had exploded and was crazily being torn into pieces. The pain from his cells, pores, and meridians made Su-yi feel as if he was in the depths of the boundless netherworld. Su-yi's eyes were bloodshot, and his entire skin was red to the point of cracking. Because of the huge tension, his joints opened up frightening cracks, and blood oozed out. He then raised his head and let out a long howl. Duanmu, quickly leave. A voice close to a roar came out from Su-yi's throat. Milky white gas crazily emitted from his 7 orifices, and the temperature in his body was already unimaginable. At this moment, Su-yi, who was trying his best to control his mind, felt an incomparable itch all over his body. An extremely dense blood energy accompanied by a blazing violent attribute was unceasingly flowing through his meridians. Like the eruption of underground magma, the matchless flame brought along an extremely terrifying desire, lingering thoughts and obsession, all of which poured into his mind and soul. The fiery demon dragon's poison was corroding him at any moment. The blazing temperature made it difficult for Su-yi to control himself. He forcefully suppressed the desire in his heart, and even his skin began to turn a deep red like soldering iron. It was extremely terrifying. Su-yi instantly felt that his meridians were beginning to rupture. His brain was suddenly pressed down with force, and he was unable to control it. If he exerted any force, his mind and soul would collapse, and he would die on the spot. In the next moment, Su-yi angrily shouted. His right hand formed a fist, and he used all his strength to bombard his left arm. Bang! A crisp sound exploded in the gully, and Su-yi's left hand fell down softly. The intense pain from the broken bones in his hand woke Su-yi up. A sharp light shot out from his eyes, and he exhaled a mouthful of turbid white gas. Quickly leave. Don't worry about me. Su-yi said word by word, and it was extremely strenuous. Large beads of sweat continuously dripped on a Duanmu Xiaoman's clothes, and a large patch was instantly soaked. I will definitely not taint you. Duanmu, quickly leave. The words that were squeezed out from between his teeth were dripping with blood and sweat. Subsequently, the right hand that was supporting himself on the ground began to tremble. Su-yi knew that he could not hold on for long. Duanmu, he did not have the slightest bit of strength, and on the other hand, he would be humiliated and the two would fail. Duanmu Xiaoman had always been as pure as ice and as pure as jade, like an ethereal fairy in a dream. Even dust would not stain her in the slightest. What's more, his actions today had already crossed her bottom line. If there was a serious next step, Duanmu Xiaoman would definitely not continue living. Kid, are you? Is the blood dragon poison something a origin emperor like you can resist? If you continue to endure, you will definitely die. The iron soulfish roared. It did not understand and could not understand what Su-yi was protecting and what the Duanmu Xiaoman, the master of Heavenly Palace, was persevering. Absolutely impossible. Come at me, demonic dragon. Don't even think about controlling me. Su-yi roared crazily. The breath in his mouth was incomparably heavy, like the breath of a volcano erupting. Bang, bang, bang. The intense pain made Su-yi continuously pound the ground with his right hand. Fire attribute energy surged as he punched the ground again and again. Even when his joints were broken and blood was dripping, he still could not stop the pain in his head. Go! Quickly go! Duanmu Xiaoman, who was below him, saw that Su-yi would rather die than submit. He would rather die than be tainted by her. Su Yi's figure in the moonlight gradually became blurry as tears silently flowed down. This was the second time she had shed tears for Su Yi today. Duanmu Xiaoman herself could not believe that a 17 or 18-year-old youth could actually go to this extent for her. That tenacious and unyielding youth once again appeared in her mind. Her jade-like neck and chin trembled slightly. Countless pearls scattered. Duanmu Xiaoman's face was filled with fear. She stretched out her delicate hands and hit Su Yi's body. Art of heavenly manipulation. This was the only thing Duanmu Xiaoman could do to help Su Yi. Her two hands pressed down on Su Yi's body with her sole pressure, causing her snowy face and tender neck to twitch. Su Yi, you must endure this. After we get out, I will not let you down, Duanmu Xiaoman said in her heart while trembling. Bang! The art of heavenly manipulation's ferocious attack sent Su Yi's body flying high into the sky. Soon after, he landed heavily in a gully far away. The huge impact directly turned the gully into a deep pit. It was a shocking sight. Su Yi, who was lying in the middle of the pit, was curled up inside his body. Tears and snot flowed down his face like an addicted patient. His four limbs were constantly twitching, and his mind was tightly shut. When the art of heavenly manipulation entered his body, only a trace of light remained in his mind. Some consciousness still remained. Su Yi felt that he was already extremely familiar with the art of heavenly manipulation's information and techniques. Senior, does this mean that I have successfully cultivated the art of heavenly manipulation? Su Yi's memory returned to the barbarian demon valley. He looked at himself in the distance. He was sitting cross-legged, and his hands were changing one after another. He felt the wind, felt the nature, and felt everything that he could feel. Su Yi, who was fully focused on cultivating and doing his best to sense the existence of the remnant souls around him, murmured Su Yi, who was sleeping in a blood mist, as if he had been enlightened. Feel the remnant soul. Feel the remnant soul. Calm down. Don't be impatient. He had tried countless times, failed countless times, and climbed up countless times to rebuild himself. His current situation was the same as when he first cultivated the art of heavenly manipulation. The remnant soul of the blood dragon in the blood chi wanted to borrow a body to be reborn. The demonic thoughts and desires made Su Yi lose his sense of direction. It was difficult for him to calmly find the location of the remnant soul. He had no choice but to be manipulated by it. Su Yi wanted to cultivate the art of heavenly manipulation again. In a sea of blood, Su Yi felt that the chi of vitality that he had just squeezed out from his meridians was still left in the great void sea. Following the spiritual light of Duanmu Xiaoman's art of heavenly manipulation, Su Yi's supernatural awareness also flowed through his meridians and finally gathered in the great void sea. This calming exploration made Su Yi feel that there was a trace of stability and improvement in his body. The spiritual light and the chi of vitality fused together. It was like a palm on a calm lake. Ripples appeared one after another. The chi of vitality started to become restless. This comfortable feeling was unprecedented. The Origin Supreme technique started to be activated slowly. The spiritual energy of the void started to gather again. At this moment, Su Yijin had truly entered a miraculous state. Lying in the deep pit, he was like an old monk in meditation. However, it was as if he was connected to time, to heaven and earth, and to nature. Duanmu Xiaoman stood up weakly and looked at Su Yi in the deep pit. Her skin was still red. However, Su Yi's spiritual energy and aura had started to circulate weakly. He is really stubborn. What did he go through? Duanmu Xiaoman clutched her chest. A look of pain flashed across her eyes. Chapter 1690. Duanmu Xiaoman was in a daze. At this moment, she could not help Su Yi at all. However, her heart was tied tightly to Su Yi in a life and death situation. For the first time, she started to take a good look at this thin and strong man with a hint of evil. He was young, but he displayed extraordinary strength and wisdom. The art of driving the heavens that he cultivated was of the same origin as her. He had the inheritance of the golden dragon and the emperor sparrow, as well as that incredible and mysterious power. Su, he was too different from the rest. "Who are you?" Duanmu Xiaoman asked softly. She was secretly praying for Su Yi. She really hoped that Su Yi would be able to survive this ordeal. As for Su Yi, who had already begun to circulate the Origin Supreme technique, the heavenly origin demon soul in his mind suddenly became incomparably bright. The demonic light was lively and natural, lingering around the mysterious and unpredictable runes. The golden dragon soared and spun, and his entire mind was once again as bright as the sun. "What are you doing?" The blood-red demonic dragon's completely deformed face was exposed in front of the heavenly origin demon soul. It was as terrifying as a ghost's face. "The heavenly origin demon soul is for me to use." Su Yi secretly used the heavenly demon ancient scripture and the origin supreme technique. An intense aura fluctuated. Within the great void spirit sea, the vortex surged and the energy of heaven and earth began to gather. Unparalleled energy of heaven and earth continuously flowed into Su Yi's body. The heavenly origin demon soul continued to grow. It was like a bright sun, and the sound of wind and thunder filled the air. Gradually, the heavenly origin demon soul began to rise into the air and float in his mind. There was no extra aura fluctuation, only an ancient aura. "This is..." Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes lit up. Seeing Su Yi spontaneously absorbing the energy of heaven and earth into his body, Duanmu Xiaoman also began to heave a long sigh of relief. "Su, you should be able to survive this." At this moment, the blood-red dragon had already turned into a pool of blood in his mind. The angry blood-red remnant soul was being roasted by the heavenly origin demon soul. "Do you think you can refine me? Don't even think about it." At this moment, Su Yi's consciousness could no longer speak and could only madly cultivate the art of driving the heavens. The heavenly origin demon soul was like the nine heavens' divine Sunday. The fiery red light became more and more intense, and his entire consciousness began to awaken. Bang! Blood spurted out and completely turned into a ball of crystal clear blood-red bead that spun around the Tian Yuan demon soul at high speed. Then, like a stone that fell into the bottom of a lake, it melted into the Tian Yuan demon's soul and disappeared. As the vast space fluctuated, the wind and snow drifted. The void was eerily silent, so silent that it was frightening. Only Su Yi's body was crackling. "Puchi, Su Yi." Duanmu Xiaoman was startled. With a light tap, she flew to Su Yi's side, only to see Su Yi spurting out a cloud of black blood. The blood was like thunder, faintly emitting a desolate and rotten aura. When it sprayed on the ground was instantly corroded. Seeing Su Yi spit out the black blood, Duanmu Xiaoman's graceful body suddenly relaxed, and her expression became tranquil. Su Yi's body was still red from the thrilling experience just now. The high temperature did not recede, and Su Yi was still unconscious. Duanmu Xiaoman's startling eyes were clear and bright, full of spirit aura. They were full of concern for Su Yi. Russell, knowing that Su Yi's soul was fine, but the high temperature of the blood-red dragon was still there, Duanmu Xiaoman pursed her lips and took off Su Yi's tattered clothes. Soon after, her snow-white dress was quietly removed, and she was only wearing an inner garment. Her sparkling and translucent skin was tightly pressed against Su Yi, and they hugged each other tightly in the snow. Seeing Su Yi frowning, Duanmu Xiaoman could hear her heart thumping like a little deer. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had always been arrogant and domineering, did not know what was wrong with her. She was actually like this for Su Yi. However, she was clear that as long as Su Yi could successfully survive, that was what Duanmu Xiaoman wanted to see the most. As for other things, Duanmu Xiaoman did not want to think too much about them. The ice crystals protecting their bodies constantly flew out in front of the two of them, circling around them like jade people. Su-yi was handsome, and his body was snow-white. Duanmu Xiaoman's beauty was unreal. Her calmness was filled with loneliness. Her face was like a beautiful jade carving, and there was no next time. With the ice crystals attached, Su-yi's terrifyingly high body temperature began to drop. Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to have forgotten about Su-yi in her arms and said softly, "Actually, when I said, just now, I really wanted to ask." On the other side, at the bottom of the broken sword sea, in the endless sea, the smell of blood pervaded the air. It was filled with the corpses of countless demonic beasts, as well as countless fragments and remnants of heavenly treasures. The further they went, the more apprehensive Han Wulong and Guyue became. The sea was filled with soul pressure. Just the water pressure alone made Han Wulong and Guyue frown. This kind of fierce battle was definitely not something they could participate in. There was still 5,000 meters to go. If they went any further, it would only become more and more difficult. The two of them had already reached a depth of 15,000 meters. Guyue said to Han Wulong, "This kind of pressure is no small matter. If we go any further, our heads will be hanging by their waists." Han Wulong's eyes were resolute. The aura of the golden dragon intensified once more. His only task now was to find Su-yi. He would not think about anything else. "Let's go quickly. Palace Master Duanmu is still down there." Whoosh! The sea water surged endlessly, and the blood-colored pressure permeated the air. Guyue and Han Wulong felt an impulse to commit suicide at any moment. Then they stopped talking. The Yuan Qi attribute around them rapidly surged, and they sank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they had already reached 20,000 meters. Boom! A bone-chilling, desolate qi rushed towards them. Soon after, a terrifyingly low temperature attacked them like a hurricane. Between heaven and earth, there was a vast expanse of white snow. It was completely different from the world of seawater just now. The snow was silent, and it covered all auras. The distorted space shocked Han Wulong and Guyue. What kind of heaven-defying battle had they just experienced? Was this Duanmu's strength? Mountains and rivers reversed, and the terrain changed. Wind and snow filled the air. Han Wulong gathered his aura, and a rolling sound wave began to reverberate in the void. The sound wave was rolling like thunder. "Su-yi, Palace Master Duanmu, where are you?" Palace Master Duanmu. Guyue's expression was extremely solemn. Looking at the old frozen bottom of the sea, he could not help but feel terrified. He joined in the search. "Palace Master Duanmu, Guyue is late. Where are you?" After a long while, a beautiful figure suddenly rose into the sky from a gully in the distance. She looked a little disheveled. She was neatly dressed, and her hair was messy. Her starry eyes were like waves, and she was extremely beautiful. She had an arrogant temperament. Who else could it be but Duanmu Xiaoman? "Palace Master Duanmu, it's Palace Master Duanmu." Guyue and Han Wulong immediately flew to Duanmu Xiaoman's side. Before they could reply, Duanmu Xiaoman pointed at the deep pit. An invisible aura distorted the space and said, "Save Su-yi first." Chapter 1691. Su-yi. Han Wulong and Guyue looked in the direction of Duanmu Xiaoman and saw Su-yi lying in a pool of blood, unconscious. Both of them turned pale with fright. Su-yi, with a stride forward, Han Wulong rushed into the pit with golden light. Immediately, a bloody aura rushed into Han Wulong's soul, and his body emitted a boundless golden aura. Boom! In a split second, the smell of blood in the air collapsed. Han Wulong raised his eyebrows and placed his hand on Su-yi's forehead. His face gradually turned gloomy. Guyue also felt the danger and terror of this place. Faintly, an ancient and evil aura lingered in the air. If he stayed any longer, his soul would be damaged. It's like, "Master Han, how is Su, brat?" Han Wulong carried Su-yi on his shoulder and said, "His situation is not optimistic. He needs to be treated quickly. His meridians are broken, and his bones and flesh are already considered minor injuries. The injuries to his vital energy and soul are the most serious. Without any miraculous medicine, this brat will not be able to survive. Not a single moment can be wasted. Hearing this, Guyue's pupil shrank, and a trace of panic appeared on his aged face. Han Wulong, bring Su Yi to my residence in the back mountain. I will treat his injuries. Guyue turned around and nodded heavily at Duanmu Xiaoman. Hearing Han Wulong's anxious voice, he immediately said, "The Tianfeng competition is about to begin. The Heavenly Wind ranking tournament is just around the corner. This brat's identity is no small matter, and he is closely related to me. My limitless sect also has countless doctors, and they can still treat Su Yi. I hope Sect Master Duanmu can grant my request." Guyue took a step forward and said, "No. Sect Master Han, Su Yi is in trouble because of my Heavenly Command Palace, so he should be treated by my Heavenly Command Palace. Otherwise, what will others say about my Heavenly Command Palace?" Duanmu Xiaoman, who was standing on top of the ravine, pretended to be calm. A vast soul pressure once again spread out from her body. She coldly snorted. She snorted and said softly, "Han Wulong, if your limitless sect wants to snatch someone from my Heavenly Command Palace, go ahead and try. If I don't see Su Yi in the deity's palace, your limitless sect will be buried with him." Her killing intent, like a hurricane, crushed Han Wulong's body, and his body trembled. As soon as she finished speaking, Duanmu said to Guyue, "Do you have the space-rending jade with you? Time is tight. Follow me back to the back mountain." Guyue solemnly handed over the small space-rending jade, turned around, and looked at Han Wulong. He shook his head, indicating for him to stop talking, and said solemnly in a low voice, "Sect Master Han, please forgive us. There are still many things we need to wait for Su Yi to wake up and give Heavenly Command Palace an answer. You are anxious, but this old man is also anxious. Su Yi is no longer just a heaven-tier soul manipulation master to Heavenly Command Palace. I believe that when Su Yi wakes up, he will want to be in Heavenly Command Palace and not the limitless sect." Han Wulong's tall and mighty body slightly stiffened. He looked at Su Yi on his shoulder. Su Yi's injuries were too heavy, and he couldn't afford to lose him. He gritted his teeth and said, "Sect Master Duanmu, the limitless sect has an urgent matter. When Su Yi wakes up, you must let me see Su Yi immediately." Duanmu Xiaoman cast a cold look at Han Wulong and ignored him. She then looked at Su Yi. The space-rending jade in her hand buzzed, and mysterious runes flowed endlessly. In an instant, the energy in the sky quickly gathered. The moment the wind blew, with Duanmu Xiaoman as the center, the blood energy dissipated, and the snow melted. Immediately, wind and thunder roared above the void, and a spatial crack that only allowed one person to pass through was formed. Duanmu Xiaoman was as agile as ice. An icy blue arc flashed in the sky, and her beautiful figure disappeared. "Let's go too." The two shook their heads. Han Wulong was even more anxious. No matter how Guyue asked, Han Wulong wouldn't answer. In his heart, Guyue didn't know what Han Wulong cared about. Zhongzhen Back Mountain, in a heaven-driving divine palace carved out of white jade. Han Wulong had already returned to Linghua Peak. Guyue supported Su Yi and followed Duanmu Xiaoman into the heaven-driving divine palace. Inside the palace, an ancient aura was surging endlessly. Although the palace wasn't big, the decorations were also very simple. The style was similar to its owner, Duanmu Xiaoman, with a hint of loneliness and desolation. There wasn't the slightest emotion, only endless tranquility. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful figure walked in front, and Guyue followed behind her. Her cold voice was heard. "Bring Su Yi directly to the heaven-driving earth vein and let him recover quickly." Heaven-driving earth vein? Guyue put Su Yi aside and walked forward. He bowed and said, "Palace Lord, the earth vein is a place that only the previous palace lords can enter. What happened to Su Yi?" Duanmu Xiaoman's voice gradually weakened. Her delicate body slightly trembled as she said, "Call Luo Wuya and Long Pasan over as well to help me." Boom! Duanmu Xiaoman only saw a drop of blood dripping from the corner of her mouth onto the ground. Her untainted, beautiful figure suddenly fell to the ground. Palace Lord! Guyue was shocked. He quickly helped Duanmu Xiaoman up and said, Palace Lord, what happened? Duanmu Xiaoman had already fainted. She murmured, Save Su Yi first, save Su Yi first. Guyue, who was supporting Duanmu Xiaoman, had a complicated expression. Duanmu Xiaoman's injuries were just as serious. Her face, which was just pretending to be healthy, was now pale. Her yuan qi and soul energy were almost exhausted. She turned to look at Sui. What happened between the two of them? Her yellow eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. On Lingyue Peak, after Han Wulong came back, everyone kept asking about Su Yi's situation. Han Wulong gave a simple explanation and told them not to worry. Then, he ran to the back mountain every 2 hours. When he ran over again, 2 elder dukes were already guarding the rear peak, and no one was allowed to enter. Han Wulong, who had returned in embarrassment, felt even more uneasy. The elder dukes were personally guarding the rear peak. How could this be? Only the Taishang elder had come out of seclusion. The entire Yutian Palace didn't sleep for one night. Yutian River, including Archkay Lake, and all the palaces were brightly lit. The teaching elders, the elders, and all the disciples of Yutian Palace were busy. A large number of disciples were injured, which was a loss for Yutian Palace. Countless pills were transported out from Heavenly Pill House. Many elders also stayed up all night to heal their disciples. The only thing that people cared about was Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman. Rumor has it that Duanmu Xiaoman went straight to Yutian Palace after returning to the palace. Su Yi was also sent to the back mountain by Guyue. Many people were speculating about the relationship between Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman. What happened between Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman at the bottom of the lake? But one thing was certain. Su Yi had achieved his bet. Not only did he reach 20,000 meters, but he also came out alive. As for Su Yi's 4 firsts, everyone was looking forward to the Yutian Soul Competition's commendation ceremony. Late at night, the moon was bright in the sky. Countless stars intersected like a chessboard. Luo Wuya and Long Pasan were very busy. Many elders received a notice late at night that the next day's competition would be held as usual. On Lingyue Peak, everyone was cheering. Han Wulong was also relieved. It seemed that Su Yi was safe. Chapter 1692. The first ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and sprinkled on the mountain ridge, bringing a long-awaited radiance to the gloomy hearts of the disciples of the Imperial Palace. The entire Imperial Heavenly Palace had spent the previous night in a state of panic and panic. This Imperial Heavenly Soul Competition was unprecedentedly dangerous. It was the same for the people of Lingyue Peak. Since they received the notice late at night, none of them slept the entire night. They simply cultivated until dawn. Han Yuro opened the door, and the dazzling golden light embellished the entire courtyard with a golden color. She immediately muttered to herself, Su Yi will be fine. At the same time, Li Shiran and Li Changshu opened the door and saw Han Yuro. They immediately squeezed out a smile on their tired faces. You're all up. Han Wulong and Tian Ho had been waiting in the courtyard for a long time. It was unknown if they hadn't slept the entire night. Father, did the notice last night mean that Su Yi is fine? Han Wulong didn't comment. He knew what his daughter was thinking. At this moment, he was just like his daughter, even more than Han Yuro, hoping that Su Yi would be fine. We'll know when we go take a look. In front of Zhongjin Peak, the thin morning mist gradually sprinkled down. Han Wulong and the others walked through the mist and found their seats. Seeing that many people around him still looked tired, he knew that the entire Imperial Palace didn't have a peaceful night last night. This Imperial Soul Competition can be said to be unprecedented in history. If this matter becomes a little bigger and provokes the few old farts of the Imperial Palace, even the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean will be in turmoil. Han Wulong muttered in his heart. On the high platform, Luo Wuya, Long Pasan, and the others had already arrived. On the other side of the high platform, Zhuqiu Feng and the others were kneeling. They looked very haggard. Everyone had their heads lowered and looked very haggard. What's going on? Isn't it supposed to be a commendation ceremony? I don't know. Look, why is Jun Haoyan in there too? Yeah, wasn't Jun Haoyan released already? He even rescued Zifeng. Could it be that the demonic creatures are related to him? When Ling Yefeng heard the whispers of the people around him, he started to frown. Countless thoughts flashed through his eyes. No matter what happens later, we must take Su Yi away. Han Wulong secretly clenched his fists as he spoke to the experts of the limitless sect behind him. On the other side, a disciple pointed at the white light in the distance and said loudly, "The palace master is here. The palace master is here." Halala! Everyone immediately restrained their expressions. After the battle in the Broken Sword Ocean, everyone had a new understanding of Palace Master Duanmu's strength. Just the mention of Duanmu's name was enough to make them feel terrified. Above the void, a frost-like aura rapidly surged, and the surrounding cold wind immediately lingered in everyone's heart. The hair on their backs stood on end as if they were being suppressed, and they prostrated themselves on the ground. Duanmu Xiaoman quickly descended. Her immortal appearance was outstanding, but her complexion was a bit pale. She sat upright on a high platform, but she was still as cold as before. She coldly looked down at everyone from the heavenly palace. Behind her were Gyue, Long Pasan, Luo Wuya, and the other elders. "Let's begin." Duanmu Xiaoman lightly opened her thin lips. Gyue nodded to both sides and walked up the high platform. A few Heavenly Palace disciples immediately accepted the order and presented a few boxes covered with red silk. Whoosh! Everyone's eyes shot towards the 3 boxes, their eyes filled with anticipation. Although they already knew that Su Yi would definitely take first place in martial and soul cultivation, many people still hoped that he would gain something in alchemy and smithing. If Su Yi really took first place, it would be an extremely shameful matter for the Heavenly Palace. The commendation ceremony will now begin. After receiving Duanmu Xiaoman's signal, Gyue's heavy voice reverberated throughout the entire plaza. Gravel flew everywhere, and a boundless soul aura immediately suppressed everyone. Although there are some unforeseen events in the Heavenly Palace this time, it is still handled appropriately. The Heavenly Palace Soul Competition has ended successfully. Next, I will announce the first place of soul cultivation. Gyue said. Boo! Everyone's eyes looked towards Palace Lord Duanmu. They were puzzled because Su Yi wasn't here. Clearly, Su Yi should be the first place of soul cultivation. If he wasn't here, then this commendation ceremony would be meaningless. Wait! Han Wulong and a group of Boundless Sect's disciples walked forward and cupped their fists towards Gyue. Elder Gyue, this commendation ceremony is naturally for everyone to participate. Clearly, someone isn't here. How can we commend them? Who is this commendation ceremony? Everyone present nodded lightly. Someone said in a low voice, "Although I don't want to admit it, Su Yi saved all of our Heavenly Palace's disciples. He relied on his strength to take first place, so he should be rewarded. For this reward, if he isn't here, then the commendation ceremony is useless." Gyue was a little embarrassed. Han Wulong was well aware that Su Yi was injured. He was afraid that the Boundless Sect was forcing Palace Lord Duanmu to hand over Su Yi. Han Wulong, don't pester endlessly. Long Pasan roared. Luo Wuya, Long Pasan, and the other elders were very clear about Palace Lord Duanmu's situation. Every one of these confidants had a solemn expression. They all wanted to quickly end the Heavenly Palace Soul competition. What was this Han Wulong acting for? Could it be that he wanted to take advantage of Palace Lord Duanmu's weakness to snatch him away? Su Yi was currently lying in the earth vein. How could he wake up? This was simply a joke. Even Zhuqiu Feng was brought here. Why isn't Su Yi here? Without Su Yi, the Heavenly Palace Soul competition won't be held today. Han Wulong didn't care about anything else. His eyes shone brightly as he shouted. Boom! Duanmu Xiaoman stood up and aimed a monstrous chill at Han Wulong. Everyone on the high platform lowered their heads, not daring to look her in the eye. They all guessed that this time, the boundless sect was going to completely go against the heavenly palace. At this moment, a steady and vigorous voice came from afar. Who said I wasn't coming? The voice was loud and vigorous. Suddenly, a wild and ancient aura began to spread in the air. A figure descended like a huge bird and landed on the high platform with a loud bang. The huge impact made everyone tremble and take a deep breath. Swoosh! All the elders on the high platform rushed up. Long Pasan and Luo Wuya sized up Sui. They all knew how serious Su Yi's injuries were. It was simply a miracle that he was fine. Good boy. This is the first time I, Old Long, admire a young boy. You are really amazing. Amazing. Elder Guyu was also surprised. Yesterday, he was the one who carried Su Yi to the heaven-controlling earth vein. Today, he actually came out of the earth vein safely. It was unbelievable. After Su Yi bowed to them one by one, he said to Han Wulong, Sect Master Han, we haven't seen each other for a few days. Why do you miss me so much? You have such a big lineup to welcome me. When Han Wulong saw Su Yi as if nothing had happened, he was also extremely surprised. Thinking of his rudeness just now, Han Wulong said awkwardly, It's good that you came out. Follow me back to the boundless sect. Su Yi waved his hand and looked back at the fairy-like Duanmu Xiaoman. The feeling in his heart began to change. No rush, no rush. I promised you in Palace Master Duanmu. This commendation ceremony has to end, right? Chapter 1693. Han Wulong frowned and said, All right, Palace Master Duanmu, since that's the case, please begin. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with killing intent. She snorted and ignored Han Wulong. Su Yi turned around and met Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes. Duanmu Xiaoman glanced at Su Yi and said through Yuan Qi transmission, Are you courting death? Looking at Duanmu Xiaoman, Su Yi relaxed a little. His brows began to furrow, and a dispirited aura flowed out. Su Yi knew that Duanmu Xiaoman was blaming him for forcing himself to stand out, and instead of staying in the earth vein, he had to come out and show off. If I didn't come, I'm afraid there would be more trouble in the Imperial Soul competition. Su Yi smiled bitterly. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flickered. Her cherry lips opened, but she hesitated. But thank you. Grandpa told me that your pills are very effective. You took good care of them. As soon as she finished speaking, Su Yi stood beside Long Pasan and Luo Wuya and nodded. The two were also full of admiration and curiosity towards Su Yi. Their attitude had changed greatly. Su Yi heard a soft voice. When it's over, come back with me quickly. What about the boundless sect? Su Yi asked. Why were both of them looking for him so urgently? Su Yi's heart was filled with doubts. My imperial palace is not afraid of the boundless sect. The matter between us is not over yet. Before that, you can't go anywhere. Su Yi's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He was afraid that the matter at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea would be brought up again. Not far away, Guyue's robe trembled. Seeing that Han Wulong had already returned to his seat, his deep voice resounded through the clouds. In that case, the Heavenly Rider Soul Tournament Commendation Ceremony officially begins. Whoosh! Everyone's gazes once again shot towards the high platform like sharp blades. Everyone was calculating the rankings of the alchemy and equipment refining competitions in their hearts. According to the previously agreed upon rules, the first place in alchemy and chi refinement would each receive a high-grade, mysterious-grade medicinal pill, mysterious heavenly flame pill, while soul cultivation and martial cultivation would be combined into a chaotic battle event. Everyone could get 3 Dongxian heavenly fire pills if they went 10,000 meters deep. Those who went 15,000 meters deep would get the Heavenly Artifact House's precious treasure, the Green Flame Ink Cauldron. As for those who reached the depth of 15,000 to 2,000 meters, they could directly receive the careful guidance of the Grand Elder. Furthermore, for 7 days, they could choose any medicinal pill of the Imperial Celestial Palace. Such a generous offer was enough to select the next Palace Lord. Anyone would be looking forward to it. However, Su Yi has already taken over the fight. Sigh. Indeed, we can't compare to his strength. It's just a pity for Jun Haoyan. What do you think Jun Haoyan did this time? He was so wise and powerful yesterday, but today, he's become a prisoner again. Countless disciples were discussing among themselves. Among the crowd, only Elder Z was the only martial god with an empty expression. He seemed to be disinterested in everything in front of him. A few elders from Arch K Lake lowered their voices and cast their gazes at Elder Z. It said that the demonic creature was discovered by Elder Z and his disciple, Z-Phone. Listen up, Zwichio Phone and the others have been brought here. They'll definitely give the entire Imperial Celestial Palace an explanation. In Lingwe Peak, Han Yuro, Li Shiran, and the others were looking forward to it. On one hand, Su Yi had won the chaotic battle, giving Guyue and Lingyue Peak a sense of satisfaction. It would definitely shock everyone present. On the other hand, the treasures that he cultivated would definitely shine in the entire Imperial Celestial Palace. Whether or not he could achieve the grand feat of 4 first places would depend on this. Next, I'll announce the rankings of the soul manipulation battle. There are only 3 contestants who reached 10,000 meters this time. Gudong. Everyone held their breaths and listened carefully. The contestants who reached 15,000 meters are Jun Haoyan and Z-Phone. Gua muttered, and a surge of soul pressure instantly spread throughout the entire place. Everyone looked at Jun Haoyan, who was kneeling on the side, and Z-Phone, who didn't come at all. Some of them looked at Elder Z, who was in a daze with doubt. The contestant who reached 20,000 meters is the heaven-rank soul manipulation master of Imperial Celestial Palace, the helper of Lingyue Peak, Su Yi. Phew! Although everyone had expected this, they were still shocked. Han Yuro and the others cheered in a low voice below the stage. That's great. Brother Su Yi, well done. Chu waved the flag and cheered. His young voice was full of respect and admiration. Su Yi. Han Yuro's eyes were full of Su Yi's figure. When she first met him in Sealing Cloud County, she actually witnessed Su Yi's progress step by step. Unconsciously, Han Yuro clenched her sleeves and nodded repeatedly. In an instant, the entire plaza exploded with cheers. Many disciples who had been saved by Su Yi were shouting Su Yi's name loudly. Su Yi is invincible. Su Yi is invincible. Reaching 20,000 meters and being at the same level as Palace Master Duanmu. Such a heaven-rank soul manipulation master hadn't appeared in the Imperial Celestial Palace for 100 years. How could everyone not be shocked? While feeling ashamed of their inferiority, their admiration for Su Yi had reached an extreme level. All their previous prejudices and misunderstandings had vanished with the proof of his strength. There were even some female disciples of the Imperial Celestial Palace who kept looking towards the high platform. When Su Yi descended like a young war god, he was awe-inspiring and had already captured the hearts of many female disciples. So that's Su Yi. I've heard of Su Yi's great name in other provinces before, but I didn't expect him to be so young and such profound soul mastery. I wonder if he's married or not. Without a doubt, Su Yi's popularity had reached a boiling point in the Imperial Celestial Palace. In just a few days, Su Yi seemed to have become the second palace master of the Imperial Celestial Palace. Before the commendation ceremony began, many rumors had spread that Palace Master Duanmu and Su Yi had worked together to save the Imperial Celestial Palace from the demonic beasts. The two had risked their lives and almost lost their lives in the sea of broken swords. This fame caused Su Yi's prestige to skyrocket. He had become an existence that couldn't be ignored in the Imperial Celestial Palace. His heroic act of 2 firsts made him the first person to do so after Duanmu Qingtian. Moreover, it was very likely that he would take 4 firsts. After the announcement, Guyue walked to Su Yi's side. His face was brimming with excitement as he looked up and down at Su Yi. Palace Master Su. Congratulations. I didn't expect you to have such accomplishments. Truly amazing. Su Yi's grand words from back then were about to become a reality today. The always sullen Guyue and Ling Yefeng could properly display their strength in the imperial celestial palace. Chapter 1694. Long Pasan, Luo Wuya, and the other elders stroked their beards and praised. To be able to witness Su Yi's achievements with their own eyes, they were truly amazed. Under 20,000 meters, he had turned the tide and directly participated in Duanmu Xiaoman's battle. Such a young man was too dazzling. The two of them had the same thought. To be able to swim 20,000 meters was an extremely rare existence in the entire Yuqian Palace. Even with their cultivations, it would take a lot of effort to swim 20,000 meters. Not only was his soul energy heaven-defying, but he also had an extremely powerful soul quality. This child was promising. Everyone present was filled with anticipation for Su Yi. With Su Yi's help, Yuqian Palace would only be more glorious. In the upcoming Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, if Su Yi represented Yuqian Palace to participate, Yuqian Palace would definitely be able to slaughter everyone. Guyue, Long Pasan, and Luo Wuya all had the same thought. Su Yi, who was standing to the side, had an ugly expression. Standing on a high platform, his mind was shaken and he did not have the slightest bit of interest in the praises. Su Yi's mind probed, and he clearly understood that his injuries were still extremely serious. Everything was supported by the pills that Duanmu Xiaoman had asked his grandfather to give him. Su Yi had come here specifically to plead for leniency for Jun Haoyan. As for the praises and whatnot, they would not run away anyway. The shouts below the stage were like thunder that reverberated in his ears. Instantly, a fire was ignited in Su Yi's heart. Resisting the pain in his body, Su Yi stood up and nodded to the elders beside Gue. At the same time, he smiled and waved to the audience. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had sensed that something was wrong, had a trace of anxiety in her calm eyes. "Are you okay?" Duanmu Xiaoman asked. Su Yi's mouth curved into a smile. His eyes were firm as he transmitted his voice. "You and I have both endured such a difficult situation. There's no reason for us to lose here. Look, Commandant Palace's morale has been raised all of a sudden." The corners of Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes twitched slightly. Only in front of Su Yi would Duanmu Xiaoman's coldness be slightly colored. Guyue waved his hand, and a few disciples of the command Heavenly Palace behind him brought out 3 boxes made from soul stones. Guyue looked back and said, "Su Yi, these are the 3 things that we agreed on back then. 3 Dongxian Heavenly Fire Pellets, Green Flaming Cauldron, and Heavenly Travel Token." Then Guyue's aura surged, and a strong wind blew away the 3 cloths. When the red silk was lifted, an earth-shattering soul pressure mixed with an incomparably rich medicinal fragrance pervaded the entire plaza. Everyone was shaken by it. Gulp! Countless pairs of eyes in the square stared at the 3 boxes at the same time, and countless swallowing sounds came from their throats. The Dongxian Heavenly Fire Pellet was a high-tier, mysterious grade elixir. It was not something that an ordinary sect could take out. In addition to the Green Flame, Cauldron, and Heavenly Travel Token, at this moment, it represented that Su Yi's position in the entire Command Heavenly Palace was unparalleled. He could use the resources of the Command Heavenly Palace freely. What was even more shocking was that Su Yi was not even a member of the Command Heavenly Palace. He was only a Heaven-tier soul controller recognized by the Command Heavenly Palace. If such a talent stayed in the Command Heavenly Palace, then the Command Heavenly Palace would definitely rise to another level. Perhaps he would be another terrifying existence after Duanmu. Below the stage, there was envy, jealousy, and worship, but even more was shock and horror. Looking at the burning gazes below the stage, Su Yi was still a little unnatural. "Su Yi, congratulations." Back then, this old man said that if you came to the headquarters, you would definitely have greater achievements. Now, it has already far exceeded my imagination. Su Yi received the 3 wooden boxes and forcefully endured the pain in his heart as he said, "Elder Guyue, it's all thanks to you that I'm able to achieve what I have today." Guyue nodded heavily. He wasn't arrogant, and possessed extraordinary natural talent. So his admiration towards Su-yi grew. As soon as he finished speaking, Gyue, who was adept in observation, noticed that the gazes that were looking at Su-yi had turned towards Jun Haoyan and Elder Zifeng, who were amongst the crowd. Instantly, Gyue was clearly aware that Su-yi intended to participate in the commendation, even if his heart was greatly hurt. Elder Gyue, how will Jun Haoyan be dealt with? Jun Haoyan, Zifeng, and he'd arrived at 15,000 meters at the same time. Zifeng was the instigator of the blood-red sea of broken swords, so any punishment wouldn't be excessive. However, Su-yi felt that Jun Haoyan wasn't as bad as he'd imagined. At the very least, when compared to Zhuqiu, Jun Haoyan could be considered to be a straightforward and upright figure. Moreover, Jun Haoyan might be able to swim to 15,000 meters by relying on his own strength. So wouldn't it be too much of a pity if the command palace gave up on such a genius? As soon as Haoyan sent Zifeng back, he went to the Iron Rules Hall to report and explain everything. Now, all the elders are already aware of it, so it isn't appropriate for us to stand out and plead for leniency. So, we followed the palace master's orders and dealt with him in public. After that, Gyue turned around while his soul pressure was released once more, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Bang! He glanced at the clamorous crowd in the surroundings and said sternly, "The command soul competition belongs to the capable. It's truly the fortune of my command palace that Su-yi was able to obtain the first in 2 competitions. But there's always punishment." Punishment? Looks like it's related to Zhuqiu and the others. That's not all. Zifeng and Zhuqiu deserved it for causing such a huge incident. They almost harmed all the young disciples of our command palace. Kill. The expressions of some disciples of command palace that received the notice in advance instantly changed from admiration to resentment. The amount of shock they felt towards Su-yi was equal to the amount of hatred they felt towards Zhuqiu and Zifeng. Amongst them, some ordinary elders were the ones that shouted the loudest. Fortunately, Su-yi arrived in time and helped their disciples disperse the broken sword seawater. Otherwise, with the cultivations of their disciples and the martial Tao, even if their hearts and souls weren't injured, they would be suffocated to death. As soon as he finished speaking, Gyue ordered the disciples to bring Zhuqiu and the others up the platform, whereas Su-yi and the others directly retreated to the side and sat down before silently waiting to be dealt with. All of you have a rough understanding of everything. Zhuqiu constructed the devil blood formation in secret with the intention of cultivating a devil technique. Zifeng aroused the desire to take revenge in the command soul competition, and it caused a mighty uproar. The palace master set the competition at the broken sword ocean, yet he was almost killed. Such villains should be punished as a warning to others. As soon as he finished speaking, the myriad of eyes in the surroundings seemed like mad lions that stared fiercely at Zhuqiu with monstrous killing intent. Kill! Kill! Kill these bastards! Successive days of punishment had already caused Zhuqiu and the others to be extremely haggard. At this moment, curses were being hurled incessantly, and the slightest carelessness would cause them to drown to death. So, they didn't even dare raise their heads. There were even many people that were agitated and directly climbed up the platform, while soul torrents appeared in their hands. Yet they were forcefully stopped by the others. Duanmu Xiaoman looked coldly at Zhuqiu who knelt there, and her eyes were suffused with coldness. Zhuqiu, do you have anything to say? Luo Wuya roared furiously. Zhuqiu's entire body shuddered when he was called out, and he trembled slightly while a few strands of his black hair became disheveled, causing him to seem extremely aged. Chapter 1695. Long Pashan and the other elders all stood up and slammed the armrests of their chairs into smithereens. Their fury erupted like a volcano. Zhuqiu, you bastard! You almost harmed the entire heavenly command palace. Don't you have any remorse? Fortunately, Palace Master Duanmu discovered it in advance. Otherwise, once the demonic creatures under the broken sword ocean were formed, the entire cloud region would die with you. Who knows what kind of calamity would befall the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean? You are the center of the entire heavenly command palace. Don't you know what you've done? You tyrannical dog thief. The vassal elders all cursed loudly, their spittle flying all over the sky. At first, everyone had some doubts about Duanmu Xiaoman's decision to move to Broken Sword Ocean. After such a series of twists and turns, he suddenly realized that the Duanmu Xiaoman had long known about the changes in the Broken Sword Sea and made a last-minute decision to lure out the culprit of this chaos. The eyes of the branch palace masters of the Heavenly Dragon Continent, the Taiyang Continent, the Immortal Sword Continent, the Divine Tiger Continent, the Sky Clarity Continent, the Boundless Continent, the Central Continent, the Netherworld Continent, and the Azure Ocean Continent's branch palace masters stared extremely wide open while their veins bulged up. Their flushed red faces were like a group of roaring lions, and they wished for nothing more than a skinned Zhuoqiu Feng and the others alive. Since you don't want to talk, what about the others? Luo Wuya flicked his big sleeve. Wu Kuan, Cheng Gaoming, and the others who were also kneeling at the side were already scared out of their wits. At this moment, when they were called out, they immediately trembled like sifting chaff. Prostrating himself on the ground, he knocked his forehead heavily on the ground, creating countless small holes. He was crying and laughing at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was sitting on the high seat. Palace Master, I was wrong. We don't know anything. Yeah, it was all Zhuoqiu Feng's willful actions that caused such a calamity. We really don't know anything. Palace Master, please spare my life. The 2 vice palace masters began to complain tearfully. Then, the rows of people kneeling on the ground began to complain tearfully and tremble. All of a sudden, the place was filled with cries and howls. The group of people who acted like tyrants in Drive Heavenly Palace had now become street rats that everyone wanted to beat up. All of them shut up. Zhuoqiu Feng had a gloomy expression as he roared furiously. A trace of hatred instantly flashed in the eyes of Zhuoqiu Feng, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, and he said furiously, Duanmu, winner takes all, there is no need to say more. Since he's going to die anyway, why don't you fulfill his wish? Stop humiliating me. With light steps, her fragrance wafted in the air. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was as pure and holy as a fairy, her icy eyes were filled with contempt and mockery. Then why aren't you making a move? Duanmu looked coldly at Zhuoqiu Feng, and his moon-like eyes were filled with disdain. Zhuoqiu Feng was first stunned, and then he gritted his teeth tightly, while his hatred towards Duanmu Xiaoman surged explosively once more. What a ruthless person! Duanmu, was he trying to kill him by destroying his heart? You wanted to commit suicide in front of everyone? Very good. The corners of Zhuoqiu Feng's eyes twitched while his expression turned gloomy and gloomy. His bones were pressed down to the point they emitted cracking sounds, and the energy within his entire body surged explosively. A strand of soul pressure that suffused the surroundings surged explosively once more, and then he fell to the ground with a bang. His head smashed heavily onto the ground, causing him to seem like a corpse. On the high seat, the icy blue waterfall on Duanmu Xiaoman's right hand had vanished swiftly, and the remaining glow emanated waves of the aura of death. Divine Snow Seal! Everyone gasped successively, and the eyes of all the experts below the arena instantly narrowed. The Thousand Frost and Divine Snow Seal were 2 sets of high royal grade cultivation techniques created by Duanmu Xiaoman. The Thousand Frost Seal was a formidable martial skill that contained spatial techniques, whereas the God King Seal was an extremely formidable soul skill that was only suitable for Duanmu Xiaoman to cultivate. It was a cultivation technique that was extremely useful towards soul energy and soul pressure. Once the Divine Snow Seal was executed, the soul would be obliterated. According to rumor, so long as one was sealed by the Divine Snow Seal, then their body and divine sense would be controlled by Duanmu Xiaoman, and their soul pressure would drop swiftly. If the seal wasn't unsealed, then their meridians would be gradually sealed by extremely fine ice crystals in the end, and then they would be able to watch helplessly as death approached. 7 days later, they would instantly transform into ice and shatter. During this period of time, their divine sense would still exist. Besides feeling extreme coldness, they would also feel boundless pressure. At the later stage, it would be like falling into a kingdom of divine snow, and countless illusions would appear before their eyes. Duanmu Xiaoman wants to torture Zhuqiu Feng to death. Han Wulong's hair stood on end while his palms were covered in cold sweat. Zhuqiu Feng was instantly like a twitching worm. His resentful expression from before had instantly frozen, and his dark blue skin was extremely shocking and terrifying. In just a few breaths of time, Zhuqiu Feng stopped moving, and he was stiff like an ice sculpture. When they saw Zhuqiu Feng's appearance, a few tens of culprits directly slumped to the ground. For a time, the sound of heads kowtowing resounded incessantly, and it was like a small earthquake that shook without end. Many people were terrified to the point yellow and white liquid flowed out from between their legs, and for a time, the entire high platform became extremely awkward. Luo Wuya, are all the people who have been abusing others in the past few years here? Duanmu Xiaoman's cold voice resounded. Luo Wuya was shocked in his heart as well. And then he said respectfully, all of them are here. The others have already received different degrees of punishment. Then push all of them to the abyss of the Hall of Iron Rules. Luo Wuya raised his head to glance at Duanmu Xiaoman, and everyone was shocked. This time, Duanmu Xiaoman had killed decisively, and she really had the intention to kill, so they didn't dare say anything. These few tens of people had been fostered by the Celestial Palace, and they'd spent countless manpower, resources, and financial resources to kill them. Duanmu Xiaoman's courage caused their hairs to stand on end, and it was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over them from head to toe. This is the consequence of disrespecting the palace lord. Death is nothing to be regretted for harboring disloyalty. Men, drag them away. Do it immediately. Guyue's eyes didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy, and he snorted coldly. In an instant, everyone kowtowed even more fiercely, and the sound of their skulls cracking was not few in number. Everyone's face was ashen, and the Celestial Palace disciples below were both shocked and applauded. As for Li Ran, Han Yuro, and the others, when they heard this decision, their small faces twitched, and they all clenched the corners of their clothes tightly. They couldn't bear it, and their faces were solemn. And that Zi Feng from the Arch-K Lake, send him to the abyss as well. Duanmu Xiaoman said faintly, and turned to sit back on her seat. One reward, one punishment Duanmu Xiaoman punished in front of everyone. It was not only an explanation for everyone, but also a warning. Those who were disloyal to the Celestial Palace would not be tolerated. Jun Haoyan, Zi Feng, and Su Yi all swam to 15,000 meters, but the results were completely different. Palace Lord. When Elder Zi heard Zi Feng's name, he was instantly excited. He pushed through the crowd and scrambled up to the high platform as if he had gone mad. Duanmu Xiaoman raised her white hand, and an ice wall rose up. The ice crystals that filled the sky dazzled everyone, and they closed their eyes. Elder Zi was frozen in place, his stooped body swaying in the wind. His eyes were empty, and his expression was bleak. Palace Lord, Zi Feng was confused for a moment. I beg you to give him a way out. Please give him a way out. This old man is willing to take the punishment for him. Elder Zi's lips trembled, and he was extremely cold. The soul pressure that covered the sky seeped into his bones, and it was terrifying. Chapter 1696. Duanmu Xiaoman did not reply, but her eyes were cold. What Zi Feng? What number one in Arch-K Lake? They were nothing in front of Duanmu. Even Jun Haoyan was insignificant in Duanmu's eyes. Luo Wuya hurriedly pulled Elder Zi back. His eyes changed rapidly, indicating for him to stop talking. Elder Zi, on account of your eagerness to protect your disciple, if you dare to say such words again, I will throw you into the abyss. Luo Wuya said angrily. Then, Elder Zi's eyes trembled. like a pile of mud. He was in extreme despair. His hair and beard turned snow white and fluttered in the air. He was like an old man with one foot in the grave. He could not help but shake his head as tears streamed down his face. Looking at the sad elder Z, Su Yi's mind was instantly filled with the image of a short man in his 60s or 70s. When he was rumored to have died in the Divine Sword Valley, Elder Su must have felt the same helplessness. Su Yi's heart instantly stirred. Although Z Feng's crimes were unforgivable and he was possessed, to someone who had painstakingly nurtured him, Z Feng meant everything to Elder Z. The most ironic thing was that Jun Haoyan was going to sacrifice his life for his stubborn master. Sigh. At this moment, sighs and sighs could be heard from below the stage. He was originally a genius, but he ended up like this. At this moment, a tall figure on the stage attracted everyone's attention. Jun Haoyan's slightly thin body was kneeling on the ground. No matter how the people beside him begged for his life, his eyebrows were still raised. He was full of determination and was unmoved. Poor Jun Haoyan. Master is about to die tragically, and he is scared silly. There is no reaction at all. Yes, if I were him, I wouldn't be able to take it. Originally a genius, he was used by his master for his entire life and was shackled at such a young age. Such an ending is really hard to imagine. The discussions of the ordinary elders and disciples were like steel awls that stabbed into Jun Haoyan's spine. Han Yuro and Li Rand could not stand it anymore and turned their heads slightly. Looking at Jun Haoyan, who was as calm as water, Su Yi narrowed his eyes. His heart could not help but surge. Does this guy want to die so badly? There is no reaction at all. Z Feng and Zhuqiu Feng have completely different attitudes. Anyone would be disappointed. However, Jun Haoyan's calmness in the face of a desperate situation made Su Yi see him in a new light. Among those of the same age, there were very few who could make Su Yi feel that their minds were tough and their soul energy was heaven-defying. Seeing that Jun Haoyan didn't lose his elegance in the face of death, Su Yi nodded heavily. I'll walk on my own. Jun Haoyan raised his eyebrows and said softly, I'll walk on my own. Jun Haoyan's eyes were like water as he glanced at the sky above the imperial heavenly palace. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly as he stood up and bowed respectfully to Duanmu Xiaoman, Elder Gu Yu, and the others. Of Haoyan, Master has already punished me. Haoyan will never forget the imperial palace's nurturing. I will repay it in my next life. His voice was sonorous and powerful, and every sentence was delivered to everyone's ears. His attitude was neither servile nor overbearing, and everyone was moved. The eyes of Guiyue and the others lit up before dimming down. They did not have the slightest room to plead for Palace Master Duanmu's decision. Even if they could, they did not dare. Pleading for Jun Haoyan was undoubtedly placing themselves in Zhuqiu Feng's faction. Sympathizing with Jun Haoyan was undoubtedly reprimanding Duanmu Xiaoman. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Every step Jun Haoyan took was extremely firm. He was like a boulder that shook the hearts of others. When he passed by Su Yi, their eyes met. The pressure of their souls conflicted with each other. Neither of them wanted to give in. At this moment, a trace of fighting spirit flashed in Jun Haoyan's eyes. It was extinguished in the blink of an eye like a spark. Su Yi, you are my lifelong rival. Let's have a proper competition the next time we meet. Ha ha ha. Jun Haoyan couldn't help but laugh, and a trace of sorrow flickered between his slanted brows. Su Yi thought in his heart, this was powerless resistance, and it was a submission to fate. It was a compromise to reality. Silent sighs spread out before every single elder of the imperial palace, and they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Could it be that the imperial palace is about to lose a decisive genius? In the end, the competition between Su Yi and Jun Haoyan ended with Su Yi's victory. However, Jun Haoyan's outcome was unexpected by everyone, and they sighed lightly in their hearts. Zhuqiu Feng, who lay on the ground, was simply like a joke when compared to their disciples. All of them revealed expressions of disdain towards Zhuqiu Feng, who lay on the ground. Wait, Su Yi instantly stood up with a serious expression and wrinkled his nose. In an instant, everyone's gazes swept towards Su Yi, and Jun Haoyan, who was about to leave the stage, also turned around. Su Yi walked to Duanmu Xiaoman's side and stared at her face as he said, "Palace Master Duanmu, I have a request." Hearing this, Duanmu Xiaoman's crescent brows frowned slightly. She had roughly guessed what Su Yi wanted to say. "You want to plead for Jun Haoyan?" "That's right. This matter has nothing to do with Jun Haoyan. I hope that Palace Master Duanmu can give him a way out." A trace of surprise flashed on Duanmu Xiaoman's cold face that was like white jade. Everyone was slightly surprised. Su Yi was actually surprised by this competitor. There's no room for negotiation in this matter. You can leave. In an instant, a soul pressure rushed into Su Yi's mind. The heavenly origin demon, Soul, trembled violently, and many snowflakes instantly appeared in front of Su Yi's eyes. The monstrous chi locked onto Su Yi's body like a claw. In front of Duanmu Xiaoman, Su Yi felt that he was extremely small. This is the disparity in strength. Compared to Duanmu Xiaoman, I'm really too small. Su Yi's heart suddenly surged with monstrous waves. In the distance, Jun Haoyan's eyes were undulating. His body swayed slightly, and his lips trembled in surprise. He didn't expect that in the last second, the one who spoke up for him was Su Yi, who hadn't fought many times. However, Su Yi had his own thoughts. Stubbornness once again surged in his heart. Jun Haoyan was very similar to him when he was alone and helpless. He had the mysterious ball of light, but Jun Haoyan had nothing. If he had chosen to give up at the volcano back then, he wouldn't be here now. Su Yi gritted his teeth. This was not only to save Jun Haoyan, but also to save himself. He was using his blood and chi to save his state of mind that was about to collapse. Life should be controlled by one's own hands, and not controlled by others. At this moment, Su Yi wanted to fight for Jun Haoyan, to fight for himself, to fight for the greater thousand world, to snatch the solitary world. Saving a person is far more meaningful than killing a person. Su Yi stirred up his soul pressure and resisted the pain in his meridians. His incomparably deep eyes were like a cold pool, looking at Duanmu as if they contained endless power. Boom! Duanmu seemed to see that thin figure in the world of ice and snow again, fighting against the heavens and the earth, the unyielding figure who protected himself under his body. At that moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with tears. She lightly pursed her red lips and said indifferently, "For him, you wanted to find me?" The corners of Su Yi's mouth curled up slightly, and a proud look appeared on his face as he said, "If it were you, I would do the same." Chapter 1697. Su Yi's words had two meanings. If the person who needed redemption today was Duanmu Xiaoman, Su Yi himself would definitely step forward and save Duanmu Xiaoman from danger. And as Duanmu Xiaoman, there would definitely be people she wanted to save. She would definitely understand Su Yi's actions. Killing a person is far less meaningful than saving a person. This sentence was powerful and resonated like a valley, circling around Duanmu Xiaoman's heart for a long time. An imperceptible fluctuation flashed through her eyes. Immediately, a murderous soul aura intimidated the entire audience. The flag flying high in the distance instantly froze and stopped fluttering in the air. Everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. The vast and boundless pressure was accompanied by an endless chill. In the next second, it was as if everyone's heart and soul would be frozen. Everyone was silent, not daring to breathe loudly. As the master of Yutian Palace, Duanmu Xiaoman was like an iceberg that had been deposited in Yutian River for thousands of years. With a flip of her hand, she was majestic. That vast and mighty aura between heaven and earth once again surged into everyone's heart. No one had ever dared to face her head-on. Even Gua, Luo Wuya, and the others had solemn expressions and their bodies stiffened. Time passed by, but it felt like many years had passed. Countless people below the stage widened their eyes in shock. They thought that Su-yi was too bold. This was a peerless existence who could destroy a second-rate sect with a raise of her hand. But Su-yi was indifferently pleading with Duanmu Xiaoman for Junhao-yin, a person he had met by chance and even had some grudges with, publicly slapping Duanmu Xiaoman's face. Either he was too crazy or he was tired of living. Big brother Su-yi, Han Yuro, Li Shiran, Ah Chu, Tian Wu, and the others who had been saved by Su-yi clenched their fists. They didn't dare to move, their eyes nervous. Her blazing gaze followed the rising temperature in the surroundings, burning everyone's hearts bit by bit. The fiery atmosphere reached freezing point in an instant because of Duanmu Xiaoman's cold intent. The soul pressure that filled the sky instantly engulfed the entire plaza. It was cold and bone-piercing. The air pressure in the air was extremely low, and there was a faint trace of extreme danger. Sovereign, what about Su-yi? A few experts from the Boundless sect, who were also Origin Ancestor Realm experts, stood behind him and spoke in low voices. Yuan Qi surrounded their bodies as they made preparations. Han Wulong, who was standing with his hands clasped behind his back, did not expect the atmosphere to be so tense. His heartstrings tightened for no reason, and he was ready to rescue Su-yi at any time. Let's wait and see. Duanmu Xiaoman, this woman, is unpredictable. When they were at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea, Duanmu Xiaoman wanted to save Su-yi first. But now, the murderous aura on Duanmu Xiaoman's body was too strong. It was unfathomable. Then, Su-yi and Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes met. Su-yi, who was on the stage, wrinkled his nose and circulated the Origin Supreme technique. Although the soul pressure on the other side was extremely strong, Su-yi knew that Duanmu Xiaoman did not have the intention to kill him. It was as if she was saying, "You know me." Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze trembled. She snorted and looked away. After a while, Duanmu Xiaoman said faintly, "If you can get 4 first places, I will spare him." For first places? Did I hear wrongly? For first places? Impossible. That's an impossible task. As soon as the words came out, everyone's eyes were filled with shock and astonishment. A chill ran down their spines, and most of them were in disbelief. Ever since the establishment of Jutian Palace, there had never been 4 first places. If Su-yi could get 4 first places, not only would he be the light of Linghua Peak, but he would also be the light of Jutian Palace. That would shake the entire 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. That was the perfect performance of a person. Not only was it a symbol of soul energy, but it was also a symbol of martial strength and abundant resources. Could such a person really exist? Everyone was extremely doubtful. All right. Su-yi shrugged his shoulders and turned to look at the nervous Han Yuro and the Shiran. His eyes were full of confidence, as if telling them not to be afraid because he was here. Guyue instantly glanced at Guyue and said, "Guyue, to show fairness, go and invite those people over first." Instantly understanding Duanmu Xiaoman's meaning, Guyue nodded heavily and then quickly got off the stage to instruct the waiting disciples. "We can do it. Big brother Su, we can do it." Li Shiran mustered her strength and said loudly, "Big brother Su, watch us." Ah Chu immediately followed behind and shouted. Facing Su-yi's trust, Ah Chu and Li Shiran also showed a firmness that was different from before. After Su-yi returned to his seat, Junhao-yin was still escorted to the side. He stared at Su-yi with eyes full of gratitude. Looking at Junhao-yin, Su-yi smiled calmly and thought to himself, "Back then, I should have also hoped that there would be such a person to save me, right?" He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Why couldn't he meet such a kind and awesome person like himself? The traces of the others, including Zhuiqiu Feng, were all cleaned up. At this time, they were probably in the abyss of the Iron Rules Hall. Bring the boxes of the top 3 alchemists. Guyue's brows were solemn. At this moment, the rankings of alchemy and soul refining were especially important. Following which, The 3 pill boxes that were still covered with red silk were placed on the ancient table one by one. These 3 bottles of elixirs were refined by the disciples of Heavenly Command Palace in a very short time. They are of the highest grade and the best completion, so they can be taken directly. Some of the other elixirs don't have enough medicinal properties, and some are only half finished. But to show fairness, the elixirs that are not selected will be displayed in the Heavenly Pill House for 7 days. Because of the special nature of the Heavenly Command Soul competition, all the elixirs will be reconsolidated by the alchemy deacons of the Heavenly Pill House. After the announcement, you can go to the Heavenly Pill House to collect the elixirs by yourself with the Jade token. The same goes for the weapons later. This is an extra reward of the Heavenly Command Palace. Great! This is a complete surprise. Yes, to be able to get the support of the alchemy deacons, our elixirs will definitely be far better than ordinary elixirs. Finally, there is some return, but the 3 bottles of elixirs on the stage seem to be of very high grade. I don't know who refined them. To be able to refine them in such a short time is too amazing. Finally, it was the alchemy segment. The commendation segment continued. Han Yuro, Li Ran, and Tian Wu, who participated in the alchemy segment, had already stretched their necks very far. They couldn't wait for Gu Yue to reveal all the items in one go. Long Pasan winked at the various palace masters of Heavenly Command Palace and said, Hey, old Luo, take advantage of the fact that Gu Yue hasn't revealed the items yet. These elixirs and weapons were arranged by you. Tell me, who are these 3 from? Let's take a gamble. Chapter 1698. Luo Wuya smiled and shook his head. He pretended to be mysterious and said, I can't say. Ha ha. After he finished speaking, Luo Wuya turned to look at Su Yi and nodded. His eyes were filled with anticipation. What's there to be mysterious about? Long Pasan rolled his eyes. All the elders were sitting in a row. Lu Wangjiang from the Taiying continent, Zhu Jianjun from the Immortal Sword continent, Wu Zhouzi from the Divine Tiger continent, Nie Shuangjue from the Taiqing continent, Dan Honggong from the Boundless continent, and Lung Wuning and Lin Shuangping from the Zhongzhou and Shanghai continent. Except for the 2 female palace masters from the Zhongzhou and Shanghai continent, the palace masters from the other continents were all old men in their 60s. They were all hale and hearty, and their souls were intimidating. They were calm, and their soul energy was extremely restrained. At first glance, one could tell that they were top masters. Lung Wuning and Lin Shuangping, who were slightly weaker, sat in a corner with natural manners. The 2 palace masters were elegant and well-maintained. They looked to be in their 30s, and there were only a few shallow wrinkles between their eyebrows. One was like the moon in the water, and the other was like the flowers in spring. They each had their own charm, and their smiles were full of maturity. It was said that Lung Wuning had struggled all the way from the Archkay Lake to the position of Palace Master of the Zhongzhou continent. After Gu Yue stepped down, Lung Wuning took over. Speaking of which, Lung Wuning was promoted by Zhuqiu Feng. It was not easy for him to remain untainted. Little Ning, Little Ping, do you think any of them are from your family? Long Pasan was rejected by Luo Wuya, and now he came to the palace masters of the Zhongzhou and Shanghai continent. Lung Wuning, who had always been aloof and straightforward, glanced at him and said softly, So much nonsense. When once we open them? What's the hurry? The women of the Yuqian palace can't compare to those of the Tianlong continent. They're all fierce. Long Pasan, who had always been the big brother of the vassals, immediately got angry. Lin Shuangping, who was sitting in the corner, covered her mouth and chuckled. Big Brother Long, don't talk nonsense. It doesn't matter if you scold us, but you're scolding our palace master. This move was truly powerful. Long Pasan immediately shut his mouth in embarrassment. Everyone present held back their laughter. Lin Shuangping said, Brother Long, you should learn more from the young man next to you. You're already so old, but you're still so immature. Su Yi raised his head and looked at Lin Shuangping. She had a beautiful face and a slightly plump waist. She must have been an extremely beautiful woman when she was young. When Lin Xuanping saw Su Yi glancing at her, she returned the greeting with a smile. Her eyes were filled with sincerity, giving Su Yi an extremely comfortable feeling. Wah! The red silk was blown up high by Guyue's strong wind, and the spiritual energy of the 3 bottles of pills instantly assailed everyone's nostrils. Everyone present was shaken by this. The alchemy test officially began. Nian Yin was different from before. Because of Su Yi, alchemy and medicine refining had become the highlight. Everyone's breathing stagnated. The eyes of the vassals and elders also lit up as they nodded in praise. Luo Wuya stroked his beard and said, "There are still many talents in the younger generation of our imperial palace. To be able to refine such pills in such a short time, and all of them are mysterious grade pills. It's really not easy." Mysterious grade. Many people below the stage stared directly at the 3 bottles. From right to left, they were labeled 27, 45, and Ling Yufeng. The first 2 were labeled as ordinary elders. Ling Yufeng participated as an ordinary elder in the competition, so he was labeled as Ling Yufeng to show the difference. Lu Wangjiang, Duke Dan Hong, you 2 should be happy. Long Pasan pointed at the first 2 bottles and said. It turned out that one of them was a disciple from the Taiyan continent, and the other was a disciple of Duke Dan Hong from the Boundless Continent. Both of them had entered the top 3 in the competition. The most surprising thing was that Ling Yufeng had been selected again, which shocked everyone. If Ling Yufeng could get first place again, Su Yi would have 3 first places. The 2 Imperial Palace Masters smiled and nodded, extremely satisfied. They looked at each other with disdain and competition in their eyes. After Guyu lifted the red silk, a look of joy appeared on his face. The overwhelming number of pills turned into streaks of light that entered everyone's skin through their pores. The gloominess and palpitations from before were all swept away. The Wanmu Xiaoman, who was sitting on the stage, was very focused as she listened to Guyue. These 3 bottles of pills have been tested by Elder Luo Wuya. They are all mysterious grade pills. Team 27 will be assisted by the Taiyan continent. Team 45 will be assisted by the Boundless Continent, and Ling Yufeng will be assisted by Su Yi and Han Yuro. The explanation is complete. The Heavenly Pill House's Pill Elder, Elder Mo, and Elder Hong will test them. Invite the 2 elders, Guyue said in a low voice. Soon after, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Among the crowd, 2 elders of the Heavenly Pill House had arrived. The 2 old men were near the end of their lifespan. One of them was wearing a dark green robe, while the other was wearing a dark red robe. Their robes were covered with fire patterns, and an ancient aura of heaven and earth instantly filled the entire place. Both of them had silver hair and were extremely eye-catching. Their bodies were light and did not have the slightest bit of pressure. However, when they saw the medicine, their eyes lit up and an indescribable force surged out from their bodies. With the 2 of them as the judging criteria, it was absolutely fair. The crowd discussed in low voices. Core Elder. He was the house master of the Heavenly Pill House. Like the Supreme Elder, he was someone who would not come out of seclusion all year round. In recent years, the affairs of the Heavenly Pill House have been handed over to the pill refining deacons, who specialize in studying medicinal theory and pill recipes. Elder Mo is well-versed in the medicinal theory of all things in the world, including the medicinal properties of herbs. Elder Hong is well-versed in the cauldron fire technique. The control of the flame of the pills that have passed through their hands is just right. There is absolutely no one more suitable than them to make the judgment. Yes, I don't know if Su Yi can win first place again. Faintly, whether Su Yi could win first place or not had become the focus of attention in this soul-riding Heavenly Soul competition. Standing in the distance, Jun Haoyan's eyes were even more anxious as he stared at the situation on the field with bright eyes. The fire of his life was instantly boiling hot under the insistence of Su Yi. The introduction of the others filled her ears, but made Li Shi ran even more nervous. At this time, A warm little hand was placed on her hand, and the palm was covered with sweat. Looking up, Han Yuro was looking at her with a smile. It's okay, you can definitely do it. Believe in yourself. And Li Shiran smiled like a flower, like a spring bud blooming in March. It could be seen that Han Yuro was also extremely nervous. The two elders immediately bowed to Duanmu Yuyu. Duanmu Yuyu said, "Two elders, let's begin." Turning around, the two elders looked serious, narrowed their eyes, and shouted loudly. Chapter 1699. Elder Mo and Elder Hong each threw out the cloth in their hands. A moment later, a pure white pill floated out of the bottle. It had a faint luster and looked extremely holy. Elder Mo's eyes flickered. A gentle breeze came from his hand, and the medicinal fragrance obediently went to the tip of Elder Mo's nose. Black Lotus Poison Purging Pill. Thai Incontinent. The furious Buddha Black Lotus on the unmelted snow river can be used as a catalyst to cure all kinds of poisons in the world, not to mention poisonous gas and miasma. It's a must for cultivators to break through and travel. Materials: top grade. Recipe: mid-grade black grade. Pill grade: mid-grade black grade. Elder Hong then took a closer look and said, Team 27, Black Lotus Poison Purging Pill. Fire level: medium. Cauldron: mid-grade black grade. Considering the urgency of time, it's really difficult to have such quality. Overall score: AN. Listening to Elder Mo's explanation, Thai Incontinent's Lu Wangjiang and the 27 elders below the stage sat up straight. Their faces were flushed, and they were very satisfied. In the Huttian Soul competition, the scoring criteria were based on materials, recipe level, grade, fire level, and cauldron. The scoring results were divided into A, B, and C, and each category was further divided into high, middle, and low grades. Thai Incontinent's Huttian Palace also contributed greatly to this pill refining project. They spent a lot of effort, and to be able to get Elder Mo's approval, the score of A and was really not low. In the past Huttian Soul competition, NA could definitely get first place in pill refining. It was really not easy to refine a pill with such a high completion rate in such a short period of time. The disciples below the stage who assisted Team 27 were even more proud. They looked at the two sides and Su E on the stage and raised their eyebrows. The corners of their lips curled into a smug smile. What are you so proud of? We haven't even gone up yet. Han Yuro's face was full of disgust, and her brows were full of disdain. But Dan Hongong's expression was full of contempt. He said lightly, "A small Black Lotus Poison Purging Pill is enough to make you so proud." What a waste of the title of Huttian Alchemist. Lu Wangjiang shook his head when he heard this. He glanced at the corner of his eye and said with slight displeasure, "Then let's wait and see. It's Duke Hong's masterpiece." Only Long Pasan was extremely excited. He said softly, "Old Luo, you've made a good choice. You brought these two rivals together. How exciting. This alchemy competition is like a fight. It was so fun. Huh." The examination of the second elixir pill began immediately. Following the same pattern, Elder Mo and Elder Hong once again shot out their soul ribbons, which lingered above the elixir bottle of the boundless land. As soon as the bottle cap came off, a golden light soared into the sky. In an instant, it turned into a vast area and scattered all over the place. The violent wind was like a storm rushing into the sky. An abnormally majestic energy instantly spread throughout the entire area. An incomparably rich medicinal fragrance rushed into everyone's nostrils. Then a pill filled with golden light spun in the air, containing astonishing energy fluctuations. It was extremely shocking. The dazzling light instantly illuminated the entire high platform. It was like a scorching sun, and one could not look directly at it. Whoosh! Everyone's soul shook instantly. Such an unparalleled pressure must be the birth of an extremely powerful elixir. Even Elder Mo and Elder Hong quickly moved closer to observe carefully. Elder Mo's voice instantly rose a few notches. He was extremely excited and said loudly, "Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir. It's the Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir." He was so excited that his white beard swayed in front of his eyes. His eyes instantly glanced at Duke Hong, who was sitting at the side, filled with excitement. "Dan Hong Gong, congratulations, congratulations. Looks like after not seeing each other for so many years, you've really put in a lot of effort this time," Elder Hong said with a smile. Instantly, Elder Mo's words caused an uproar below the stage. "Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir? What's that? Father, what is that old man talking about?" Han Wulong's eyes instantly lit up. He rubbed his fists and said, "As expected of the heavenly palace. Their alchemy skills are indeed heaven-defying. They can actually refine a Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir in a day. Even if our limitless sect had the materials, it would still take half a month's time. This speed is simply unheard of." "Father." Han Yuro frowned and looked at Han Wulong, who did not reply for a long time. She was slightly anxious. Han Wulong instantly pulled his attention back and said in a low voice, "Rower, Heaven Barbarian martial artist vitality attributes are divided into the 7 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and thunder. When a person is about to die, their vitality attributes will also be extremely weak. This Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir is a life-saving elixir for metal attribute martial artists. It is refined from a Demon Grandmaster expert's demon core. One elixir can allow metal attribute martial artists to recover their elemental vitality. A good quality Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir can definitely bring the dead back to life." "What? Demon Grandmaster Realm?" "Yes, Demon Grandmaster Realm. However, to be able to completely refine it in such a short time, it's probably at the first stage of the Demon Grandmaster Realm, but it's already very rare." Han Wulong cleared his throat and stared at the Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir floating in the air. Gulp. Li Ran and Chu both opened their mouths wide. They had never seen a Demon Void Realm savage beast, let alone a Demon Grandmaster expert of the Demon Clan. Below the stage, there was a round of shock and astonishment. In an instant, the atmosphere reached its peak, and the applause and cheers reached the peak. The same explanation came from Long Pasan and the others. Long Pasan raised his eyebrows at Su Yi and said, "Kid, I'm afraid it's dangerous. Old Dan's move is very awesome. The Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir is no joke." Hearing this, Su Yi's eyebrows became serious. Elder Mo strode to the front of the stage and announced with unprecedented enthusiasm, "I announce that the Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir's ingredients, extremely high grade. Elixir recipe, black grade mid-tier. Grade, black grade high tier. Heat, high grade. Furnace, black grade high tier. Overall score, A+. Rare." He didn't even give Elder Hong a chance to speak and said everything. Elder Hong nodded his head repeatedly and couldn't stop smiling. Another round of exclamations and praises came like a string of cannonballs. One could imagine how shocking this Golden Sun Soul Condensing Elixir was. All the astonished gazes were like sharp swords shooting at Dan Hong Gong. Dan Hong Gong, whose face was flushed, couldn't stop the joy on his face. He enjoyed being the center of attention. On the other hand, Lu Wangjiang and the 27 elder captains' faces had turned the color of a pig's liver. They were seething with rage. Dan Hong Gong, a black-grade mid-tier elixir recipe, actually allowed the kids to refine a black-grade high-tier elixir. Just this Demon Grandmaster's inner elixir must have taken you a lot of effort. Elder Mo smiled and couldn't stop praising. "I'm afraid those kids at Arch K Lake are not worthy of you taking out the lightning furnace, right?" Elder Hong stroked his beard and said, raising his eyebrows at Dan Hong Gong. Chapter 1700. Hearing this, Dan Hong Gong stood up slightly amidst the praises. His hunched back straightened, and his face was filled with satisfaction. This time, I brought a little girl from my family. She is quite talented in the art of alchemy, so I brought her here to show everyone her skills. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel at ease letting her use my profound, great high-tier cauldron. After hearing this, Elder Mo and Elder Hong were even more interested. Dan Hong Gong said faintly, Ru Xian, why don't you come out and greet Palace Master Duanmu and the two alchemy masters? You can't be rude with such praise. They saw a young girl about 15 or 16 years old. She was delicate and pretty, and her long black hair was combed high behind her head with a green hairpin inserted horizontally. She was like jade, gentle and courteous. She walked over leisurely. Under countless surprised gazes, she puffed out her chest. Her well-developed breasts were like two proud little bunnies. She bounced up and down as she walked in front of Grand Duke Dan Hong. She said softly, Grandpa, what? She is Dan Hong Gong's granddaughter? She can control the lightning drawing cauldron at such a young age? This is unbelievable. Many people, including Han Yuro, had a whole new level of respect for this girl who was neither servile nor overbearing. On the stage, Dan Hong Gong's eyes were filled with joy. Ru Xian, go and greet them. When she walked past Su Yi, Dan Ru Xian glanced at Su Yi with a hint of disdain. It was as if she was declaring that even though Su Yi had taken first place in 2 competitions, she was still the absolute king in alchemy. Su Yi did not feel friendly towards Dan Ru Xian, so he did not show too much emotion. His eyes were still calm, but his mind was filled with thoughts. Like grandfather, like granddaughter. No matter how polite she is, she still looks down on others. Oomph. Su Yi sneered in his heart. Looking at her beautiful figure, Su Yi bowed to Palace Master Duanmu. The good impression that Su Yi had of her due to the earlier shock was instantly swept away. My daughter Dan Ru Xian greets Palace Master Duanmu, Elder Mo, and Elder Hong. Duanmu Xiaomon's beautiful eyes were filled with hope. Her snow-white face did not waver in the slightest as she said indifferently, Good. That's right. Congratulations to Duke Dan Hong for having such a good granddaughter. After a few words, he no longer looked at Dan Ru Xian. Duanmu Xiaoman frowned when she sensed that Duanmu Xiaoman wasn't very sad about her. In the blink of an eye, a smile appeared on his face because Elder Mo behind him said, Dan Hong Gong, after the Heavenly Soul competition, you must let Ru Xian come to my Heavenly Pill House more often. It's been a long time since a newcomer has come to the Heavenly Pill House, and it's all us old bones who are supporting the scene. Yes. Ha ha ha. I also like Ru Xian a lot. The 4 people on the stage were chatting vigorously, as if they were announcing Ling Yefeng's death sentence. Guiyue, who was hosting from the side, looked rather embarrassed. Below the stage, Han Yuro and the others were even more indignant. She muttered, Is this a family reunion? Is the test over? He was just trying to get close to her. What a joke. Yes, we haven't even entered the stage yet. How do you know we're going to lose? Achu was so angry that she stomped her feet and said loudly. Soon, her voice reached Su Yi's ears. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Duke Dan Hong is a black-grade high-tier furnace and a demon grandmaster inner core. If it were anyone else, they would have already admitted defeat. Only the people from Ling Yefeng are still persisting. Looking at Tian Wu, Ah Chu, and the others below, Su Yi's spirits were instantly lifted, and his brows revealed great confidence. Elders, the 3rd bottle hasn't been tested yet. Can you guys talk a little later? Su Yi said faintly. Su Yi's words caused the 4 people who were in full swing to stop abruptly, and they all revealed extremely ugly expressions. Elder Mo snorted softly. He looked at Su Yi, then at Ling Yefeng's bottle, and snorted softly. Who are you? I'm testing the elixirs. It's not your place to interrupt. Ling Yefeng's elixirs are ordinary. There's no medicinal aura at all. I don't think there's a need to test it. Elder Hong walked closer and spread out her soul pressure. She didn't open the bottle, but her soul lingered around the bottle and sniffed a few times. No way. Elder Hong actually said that there's no medicinal aura. Did Ling Yefeng make a mistake this time? Su, you won't be able to get first place. Su Yi is a soul controller. not an alchemist. What can those people from Ling Yefeng refine? That's true. It seems like Su Yi has no chance of saving Jun Haoyan. Poor Jun Haoyan. He's dead just like that. In an instant, the entire audience started debating and questioning. Most people sighed because of Elder Hong's words. Some were disdainful, and most were disappointed that they didn't get to see a good show. No way. Elder Hong is bullsh, ting. Achu roared. Hanyuro pulled Achu back. Achu, come back. When we refined it, it was like this. There's no medicinal aura at all. Hanyuro also started to get nervous. She immediately calmed down and said to Tian Wu, Senior brother Tian Wu, are you sure there's no problem with the elixir recipe? Tian Wu nodded firmly and said in a deep voice, I swear in the name of Ling Yefeng. Although this elixir is rare, the recipe can be found in Juqin Palace. I've studied the recipe since I was young. There's no mistake. Hanyuro raised her eyebrows. She knew that it was pointless to say anything now. Only the results would prove it. Trust was the key to this matter. Su Yi trusted Ling Yefeng and gave him the resources and cultivation vessels. Ling Yefeng would also trust Su Yi. Su Yi, trust us. There's no problem with the elixir. Su Yi, who received the Yuan Qi transmission, smiled slightly. They were his teammates, brothers and sisters who had gone through life and death together. He had no reason not to trust them. With a slight smile, Elder Imo said to the disdainful Elder Hong, and Elder Imo, Elder Hong, only the results will prove everything. Whether it's a donkey or a horse, just bring it out for a walk. Elder Hong and Elder Imo looked impatient. The two of them had been immersed in medicinal aura all year round. How could they not be able to differentiate the medicinal aura? This was clearly Su Yi's disdain for them. Dan Ruxian had already returned to Dan Honggong's side. Her beautiful eyebrows were full of smiles, as if she was mocking Su Yi's absurdity. Could an unknown soul controller like him be compared to a core controller from the Drive Heavenly Palace? Su Yi's words caused 1,000 ripples. Many alchemists were dissatisfied with his words. Even if Su Yi had saved everyone and didn't care about Elder Hong and Elder Imo, he didn't care about Juqian Palace and Heavenly Pill House. Chapter 1701. All the young disciples of the alchemy faction were cursing wildly. Su Yi, if Elder Hong says there isn't one, then there isn't one. Aren't you going too far by speaking so rudely? Don't think that you could do whatever you want in the alchemy faction just because you saved us. I think you're just an idiot. Just like this pill bottle, you're just an empty shell. Hearing the ridicule and cursing that filled the sky, Su Yi scratched his ears and did not say anything else. A murderous aura rose in his heart. He turned around and said to Duanmu Xiaoman, Palace Master Duanmu, please open the pill bottle for me personally. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze instantly landed on Su Yi. She did not know what Su Yi was planning. This was a matter of the alchemy faction's face and Jun Haoyan's life. Duanmu Xiaoman stared coldly at Su Yi. Duanmu Xiaoman realized that Su Yi did not look like he was joking at all. Are you sure? Duanmu Xiaoman asked indifferently, her crescent brows furrowed. Once again, it was confirmed that Duanmu Xiaoman was giving Su Yi a chance. Duanmu Xiaoman hoped that Su Yi would retreat in the face of difficulties. 2 first places were already outstanding enough. I'm sure. Su Yi's bright eyes shone with unswerving determination. He was incomparably certain. Whoosh! Duanmu Xiaoman's voice had just faded when a trace of terrifying energy gushed out from her body. A white streak of light flew out from her fingertips and struck the bottle cap. Bang! The bottle cap jumped out, and everyone's hearts jumped to their throats along with the arc of the bottle cap. All the criticisms were shattered in an instant. Whoosh! A light breeze blew past, but there was still no trace of medicinal energy from the bottle cap. It was as if the bottle was empty. Elder Hong, who was standing nearby, sneered. The disdain in her eyes was even more obvious. Pucci! Dan Ruxian covered her mouth with her small hand and chuckled softly. Her eyes curved into crescents. Dan Hong-gong, who was sitting to the side, also couldn't help but smile and lightly hit Dan Ruxian. Ruxian, he's not someone who specializes in alchemy. If you smile like that, wouldn't it make us seem like we're lacking in bearing? Dan Ruxian crossed her arms and placed them on her knees. She lowered her body slightly, but still couldn't stop smiling. Grandpa, Xian knows she was wrong. The two elders, Mo and Hong, shook their heads incessantly. Facing such a stubborn person like Su Yi, they simply didn't know what to say. Ignorant brat, do you really want to force this old man to go to the extreme? Su Yi's sword-like eyebrows immediately furrowed. A stream of blood and qi began to surge in his mind. He couldn't believe it. He gently shook his head. Impossible. Something must have gone wrong. It's impossible that it doesn't have any medicinal aura. Su Yi frowned. Su Yi was puzzled. The 9-turn dragon scale grass had been directly uprooted from the 9 Stars Valley. He had also personally planted it in the mysterious space when the spiritual qi was soaring and the medicinal aura was at its peak. When I gave it to Ran and the others, the spiritual qi was still soaring. How can it not have any medicinal aura after being refined? At this time, the audience had already burst into laughter. Everyone pointed at the pill bottle and laughed incessantly. Huh, I've never seen such an idiot. I gave him face, but he doesn't want it. Ha ha ha. I see that there's no medicinal pill in this pill bottle at all. It must be a lie. Guya also walked to Luo Wia's side in disbelief and whispered, Wia, there's no medicinal aura at all. How did you determine that this is a mysterious grade pill yesterday? Luo Wia's face was solemn, but he wasn't very surprised. He patted Giyue's shoulder and said, I can't say, but I can tell you that this is definitely a mysterious grade pill. Long Pasan stood up and shouted angrily, What do you mean by you can't say? If you don't tell me today, I'll beat you until you're looking for your teeth on the ground. Everyone below the stage laughed until their stomachs hurt. Han Wulong's cold voice caused everyone around him to feel a chill in their hearts. They began to restrain their expressions and shut their mouths. Rower, it's okay. Let's go back to the Boundless sect. Father will find someone to teach you alchemy. What's so good about this? Han Wulong looked at Han Yuro, who had a face of disbelief, and his heart was full of pity. Impossible, impossible. Li Ran retreated in panic. Ah Chu, Tian Wu, Han Yuro, and the others' faces were also not very good. Tian Wu's scalp suddenly went numb. He murmured, It doesn't make sense. When we first came out, there was still medicinal aura leaking out. How could this be? Old Hong must have made a mistake. They are old and dim-sighted. They don't know the benefits of the treasure. Achu still straightened his neck and said loudly, Little brother, don't be unreasonable. You've already slapped your face so hard. Why are you still insisting? The disciples of the other teams, including the elders, looked at Ling Yefeng, who still refused to admit the truth, with disappointment and contempt. Su Yi stood on the high stage, his eyes cold. His gaze moved slightly as he pondered carefully about what had gone wrong. Although he was not an alchemist, he had seen a pig run before. There was definitely something wrong with this pill. Su Yi's heart was very firm. Materials? Pill formula? Heat control? Soul control? Cauldron? Su Yi's heart was a mess. That's impossible. There must be a problem somewhere. Suddenly, when he thought of the last part, a cold light flashed through his mind. Give up. Mo and Hong shouldn't be wrong. Duanmu Xiaoman transmitted her voice to Su Yi. Immediately, Su Yi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman again and said loudly, Palace Master Duanmu, I would like to test it myself. Duanmu Xiaoman's face froze when she heard that. She sighed slightly, knowing that Su Yi was stubborn. Su Yi, you arrogant brat. You're obviously doubting me. Elder Mo had a fiery temper. When he heard that, he immediately rushed over. Su Yi was not annoyed. His lips curled slightly as he straightened his shoulders. He glanced at Elder Mo and pointed at Elder Hong. Palace Master Duanmu, it's not that I look down on the pill faction of the Heavenly Command Palace. It's just that there are miracles in everything. I believe in my teammates and the hard work of Ling Yefeng. What hard work, what a teammate. You're very eloquent, brat. Elder Hong pursed her lips. Without waiting for Duanmu Xiaoman's reply, Su Yi's killing intent instantly intensified. Vital qi surged out from the great void ocean like a river. Dense killing intent surrounded him like needles. The surging qi waves made the two pill faction elders take 2 steps back in shock. The corners of their eyes twitched. Su Yi raised his eyebrows and looked at Elder Hong. Brat, you don't know that this is no longer your era. Don't flaunt your seniority here. If I don't believe in Ling Yefeng, do you think I'll believe in you two pill faction elders who popped out of nowhere? What the F***CK did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. Elder Hong and Elder Mo's faces turned red. Their aura exploded as they rushed towards Su Yi. Their old but sturdy bodies kept shaking on the high platform. They were then stopped by Guyue and Luo Wuya. The atmosphere in the arena suddenly exploded. Below the stage, there was a wave of curses. Everyone pointed at Ling Yefeng and Su Yi's noses and cursed. Many of the equipment faction, martial faction, and soul faction looked cautious, afraid of being drawn into the battle. Good. Well said. Han Yuro and the others clapped and cheered, their eyes shining. Han Wulong also couldn't stop clapping and shouting. Bratsu, well said. Don't be afraid. I'll support you. Chapter 1702. Lin Shuangping, who was joking with Su Yi just now, was smiling like a flower now. She said to Lung Wuning, I really like this guy's temper. Wuning, he is the one who made a big noise in your Zhongzhou province. Don't you want to say something? This guy is neither servile nor overbearing, which makes the two elders flaunt their seniority. Su even made them swear. This guy is really sharp-tongued and smarter than others. He can make the holy mountain so angry. He is really extraordinary. A cold light flashed in Lung Wuning's eyes. In her opinion, Su Yi was much more difficult to deal with than the two elders. Dan Ruxian was also a little confused. The situation in the field had changed rapidly, and now it was Su Yi's home ground. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the dispute between Su Yi and Hong Yamo. She clenched her teeth and grabbed Dan Honggong's shoulder tightly. Grandpa, do you still want to compete? Dan Honggong's face was also ugly. He stood up instantly and shouted, I say, do you still want to compete or not? If not, let's go to the next round. Hearing this, Su Yi had long disliked Dan Honggong and his granddaughter. He squinted and said, Are you Palace Master Duanmu or Elder Dan Honggong? Do you have the right to speak here? You, Dan Honggong shouted. Dan Honggong stood up and pounded the table. His powerful soul energy set off countless ripples in the space. In an instant, he felt a more majestic pressure pressing down on him, making him unable to stand up. Su-Yi. Duanmu Xiaoman glanced at Dan Honggong and then stared at Su-Yi. Her voice was soft, but it was like the sound of heaven. The whole field quieted down immediately. You go and test it yourself. However, this is not only about Jun Haoyin's life, but also the reputation of the alchemy sect. You decide for yourself. Boy, if you can see the difference, we will write our names backwards. Elder Hong's eyes were burning with anger. Su-Yi waved his hand and said with a light smile, There's no need for that. Since you are elders of the Pill sect, if I win, each of you will have to fulfill one of my conditions. This kid is really shrewd. He's always scheming. Luo Wuya stroked his beard and smiled. Long Pasan also changed his posture at his seat to make himself more comfortable. This brat never fights a battle that he has no confidence in. He purposely angered the two old men. It's just as you said. He must be up to something. Long Pashan's appetite had been piqued, and he couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Good. Kid, if you succeed, we brothers will each promise you one thing. Soon after, they got into position, and everyone made room for Su-Yi. The two pill bottles in front had already been removed. All the onlookers held their breaths and opened their eyes wide. They wanted to see what kind of magic Su-Yi had. They saw Su-Yi circulate his Yuan Qi, and an extremely gentle Yuan Qi surrounded the pill bottle. Instantly, a pill poured out of the bottle. A small, pitch-black pill spun under the support of the yuan qi. It had no luster, no medicinal energy, nothing. Gudong. Many disciples were already secretly trying to stifle their laughter. He continued to surround the pill with yuan qi. The pitch-black pill looked ordinary, and it couldn't even compare to a normal qi-increasing elixir. Deliberately mystifying. After a long while, time passed by slowly, and the entire scene seemed to have stopped. Long Pasan and the other elders had already lost interest and shook their heads. Only Duanmu Xiaoman, who was sitting on the high platform, didn't look away. Her cold face was full of trust for Su-yi. She murmured in her heart, "You can do it! You can do it! Old Luo, I'm afraid you've made a mistake this time. Is Su-yi holding on because he can't back down?" Long Pasan frowned and stroked his beard. "No, he's making sure." Luo Wuya's eyes flashed. In an instant, Elder Hong and Elder Mo slammed the table and stood up. Elder Hong shouted loudly, "Enough! Don't put on an act over there. Let everyone accompany you in your nonsense." Elder Mo's lips curled as he coldly glanced at Su-yi, who was immersed in his perception. He then looked around with a calm expression. "I announce that the champion of the Imperial Soul Competition is from." Dan Honggong stood up slightly. The competition was the best proof of someone who was obsessed with the Tao of alchemy. Dan Rushuan's eyes were arrogant, and her face was filled with confidence. Team 27. Hey, Han Euro couldn't help but start to panic. Li Shiran, Tian Wu, and the others all shouted, "It's not over yet. You can't announce it." Elder Mo glanced at it and took a deep breath. Then a violent burst of energy erupted from his chest as he spoke slowly, word by word, from between his teeth. "Gold! Yang! Bang!" At the same time, a yellow light flashed in the air, and an extremely fierce energy shot out from the pitch-black pill. Boom! Streaking across the sky, the energy beam spread out in the air. The golden light that shot into the sky seemed to have traveled through time and space. In an instant, space distorted, and a monstrous wave of energy shot out. The wind and clouds in the sky quickly gathered, and the world turned dark. The vast and clear sky suddenly became obscure and bleak. Under the dark clouds, the sky was filled with stars, and nebulas surged. Countless stars flashed, and with the movement of the tiny lights, the entire sky suddenly became incomparably strange, as resplendent as the clouds. Outside the dark clouds, wind and thunder clanged, and countless tiny arcs of lightning surged like snakes, roaring without end. Roar! Lightning struck the high platform like a ferocious beast, and countless sparks burst forth. The world shook, and an ancient aura instantly filled the air. Because of the violent impact, just now, Elder Mo, who was closer, fell to the side. His eyes were wide open, and he was inexplicably shocked. At this time, all the elders had already stood up, and their eyes were undulating. The entire place was silent, and they were stunned on the spot, as if they had forgotten how to speak. Chi! Chi! After the beam of light shot into the sky, the pitch-black pill shell in the air began to peel off like iron shavings, slowly revealing its true appearance. On the small pill that was covered in nebulas, an extremely thick milky white aura was constantly emitted, like a divine light. On the almost transparent pill body, one could see an extremely small vortex condensing, and it was constantly surging crazily. With such a natural phenomenon, there was bound to be a shocking pill being produced. This kind of monstrous wind did not dissipate for a long time, and like a mighty pressure, it sent medicinal qi to the tip of everyone's nose. The medicinal qi surged like a tidal wave, and as long as one approached it, they would feel as if they had taken an excellent medicine. It made one feel refreshed, as if they were floating in the clouds, and an indescribably carefree and comfortable feeling. As for Duanmu Xiaoman, who was sitting upright on the high chair, there was a slight change in her figure. A trace of deep surprise flashed through her serene, jade-like eyes. At this time, Dan Ruxian was already shocked to the extreme. She had never seen such a shocking phenomenon before. All the elders, including Dan Hongong and Han Wulong below the stage, looked at the phenomenon in the sky, and their hearts were deeply shaken. Initial Earth Grade. It's an initial Earth Grade pill. Chapter 17:03. Poof! The dense nebula condensed, and the monstrous energy that engulfed the heavens and earth continued to circulate. It was like an ancient and profound energy that deeply shocked the eyes of everyone present. Countless disciples of the Juqian Palace opened their mouths wide. Shock and astonishment filled everyone's mind. Boom! At the same time, Su Yi's body unknowingly soared into the sky and was at the same level as the Xian-grade medicinal pill in the air. The strange phenomenon lingered in the sky. At this time, only Su Yi knew that the divine spiritual veins in his body and the primordial qi in his body were surging. Whoosh whoosh. Inside, the void spirit sea. The vortex in his dantian was exactly the same as the vortex in the transparent Dan body. It also had an extremely fierce and inexhaustible energy. It was like a surging tide that could rush to the entire heaven and earth at any time. Wind and thunder rumbled as the heaven and earth roared. In the midst of the sparks, Su Yi's divine spiritual veins seemed to have been stimulated. The medicinal energy flowed through his meridians slowly and gently. At this moment, Su Yi felt a sense of comfort that he had never felt before. Closing his eyes, his divine sense followed the flow of the medicinal energy and continued to move. The damaged meridians seemed to be wrapped in an incomparably smooth and warm current, from the meridians to the flesh and blood, from the bones to the skin. Creak, crack. Endless explosions erupted from Su Yi's joints, surrounded by resplendent light. In an instant, Su Yi's entire temperament changed. His skin was as lustrous as warm jade. On the glowing skin, there were strange and mysterious runes that flowed from time to time. Looking from afar, Su Yi's evil but not demonic face seemed to have a trace of divine splendor. In front of him, a strand of black hair fluttered in the wind. Behind him, the long robe was fluttering. In the midst of the surging divine light, Su Yi was like a god, majestic and domineering. Seeing this, Su Yi was overjoyed. The meridians in his body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. This revolving soul-refining pill had a certain probability of activating the divine spiritual veins. Therefore, it was connected to his bloodline. He did not expect it to have such a magical effect. Su Yi, who had been holding on for a while, felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him. He thought to himself, I originally wanted to hold on and drink 2 bottles of spiritual liquid from the mysterious space. However, I still need 8 to 10 days to consolidate it. This way, I won't have to waste more time. The medicinal energy of the revolving soul-refining pill is magical enough. Elder Hong and Elder Mo immediately got up from the ground and swallowed hard. Their eyes couldn't help but look at Su Yi and the miraculous transparent pill floating in the air and murmured, It's an Earth-grade low-tier medicinal pill. It's definitely an Earth-grade low-tier medicinal pill. What exactly is Ling Yu peak cultivating? How can it have such a terrifying effect? Elder Hong's lips were slightly agape and trembling. Look at Su Yi. What is he doing? Elder Mo said softly. Duan Xiaoman's heart was also filled with astonishment. Her soul energy was extremely sensitive, and she had long sensed that Su Yi was digesting the Earth-grade pill's medicinal qi. She muttered in her heart, How can he have such a deep compatibility with the refined medicinal qi? Amazing, amazing. Long Pasan, Nie Shuangjue, and the other elders were also amazed. Looking at Su Yi, who was immersed in the medicinal energy, their eyes were filled with excitement. This kid actually won the bet. He wasn't pretending. He was really confirming the medicinal properties. Long Pasan was so excited that he was drooling. He kept looking at the dumbfounded Dan Hongong, as if he was challenging him. Early Earth grade? In more than a day? Refined by a few kids? How is that possible? I don't believe it. Dan Hongong's eyes were still blurry. He was stubborn. Behind her, Dan Ruxian's face had already turned ashen. She had never seen such a heavenly phenomenon before. Below the stage, where Lingyu Peak was located, Han Yuro and Li Shi hugged each other tightly. Because of their excitement, their faces were flushed red. This was the result of their cooperation. It was also the best proof of Lingyu Peak. At this moment, their eyes were filled with tears of excitement. Great! That's great! We didn't let Big Brother Su-yi down. Li Shi's eyes were filled with tears of excitement. Su-yi won. Han Yuro was pleasantly surprised. At the same time, the two beautiful women's hearts were tightly attached to Su-yi. Looking at Su-yi's impressive prowess and shocking the entire audience, their hearts were filled with incomparable joy. As for the others, some of them had not completely recovered from their injuries. When they saw this scene, they directly fell to the ground and gasped for breath. The boundless energy of heaven and earth was crushing them to the point that they could not breathe. More of the onlookers felt their scalps go numb. Then, goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. They felt numb from head to toe, as if they were struck by lightning. They were dumbstruck and did not know what to say. Papa! As the light on the stage gradually disappeared, Su-yi's figure continued to descend. Finally, he landed firmly on the stage. The light around his body disappeared, and his energy disappeared in the air like a whirlwind. His robe fluttered in the wind, looking extremely heroic. In the palm of his hand, a transparent elixir was lying quietly. The transparent and glossy nebula vortex inside the elixir was still surging and rotating at a high speed. The transparent elixir's vortex made everyone's eyes light up. It was definitely amazing because of the amazing energy it contained. The sky cleared and the clouds dispersed. A strong and dazzling golden light instantly hit the high stage and connected with Su-yi. It was bright and dazzling, incomparably brilliant. The energy wind that was like a small storm began to dissipate. Between heaven and earth, peace was restored. However, the people's expressions could not return to how they were before. Immediately, the entire arena erupted into thunderous applause, cheers, and shouts. The people from the Tool sect, Soul sect, and Martial sect who were indebted to Su-yi quickly shouted and pushed the Alchemy sect over. Su-yi is mighty. Su-yi is mighty. I told you Su-yi wouldn't make a mistake. But what kind of elixir did he refine? How can it have such a strong energy? Early stage Earth rank. There has never been an Earth rank elixir in the previous Soul competitions. Oh my god, Su-yi is so handsome. When he flew up just now, he was so majestic. I really want to get to know him. Both the male and female disciples showered the handsome man on the stage with praises. The Alchemy sect disciples at the side were all unable to keep their faces. They were still hooting just a moment ago, but now their mouths were tightly shut. Their faces were burning red, and the red directly reached their ears. It was as if they had just been ruthlessly slapped in the face. Moreover, it was the extremely loud kind. Chapter 1704. Su-yi stretched out his hand and held the pill between two fingers, showing it to Duanmu Xiaoman. Palace Master, this shouldn't be fake, right? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes revealed a trace of warmth. Su-yi had won the bet, and she was extremely happy. 10,000 years of ice and snow had finally met the blazing sun. It is without a doubt an early-tier Earth-grade pill. Elder Mo and Elder Hong instantly rushed to Su-yi's side and coughed awkwardly, but they still said, "Little boy, can you let us see the pill?" Su-yi could feel the change in their attitudes, and in the blink of an eye, their attitudes had greatly changed. Su-yi no longer harped on it and smiled respectfully. "Please examine it, elders." Su-yi's politeness made the two elders even more embarrassed, and they trembled as they took the pill. The two of them immediately stood to the side, extremely excited. They instantly gathered around the medicinal pill and discussed it incessantly. There was still some time before the test, so Sui turned around and walked towards a seat. His footsteps were steady, and there was a faint sense of arrogance and dominance, unlike the slightly dispirited feeling from before. When he passed by Dan Hongong's gaze turned slightly, as if he was extremely embarrassed. Dan Ruxian and Suyi's eyes met and quickly looked away. Her face was burning red, her lips were tightly pursed, and her nose was also slightly red. She looked like a little girl who had done something wrong. Her head was lowered, and there was no trace of arrogance left. Don't look down on anyone. Remember, you are just an ordinary person. You. Dan Ruxian raised her head and pointed at Sui. Her sore spot had been poked, and tears welled up in her eyes. The arrogant and conceited little princess of the Dan family had never received such a face-slapping education. Dan Ruxian wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Facing Sui, Dan Ruxian was furious, but she didn't expect Sui to speak. I'm also ordinary, but I believe that there is always someone better than me. I have a group of trustworthy people behind me, and you, no one. Suyi's eyes flashed with lightning, startling Dan Ruxian into taking a step back, not daring to speak. Dan Hongong was even more furious and bitterly smiled. Forget it. It seems that I really am old. The world of you young people, go fight for it. Oomph. Dan Hongong, who was about to leave, was pulled back by Lin Shuangping. She said, Hongong, young people are always hot-blooded. When you were young, you might have been even more hot-blooded than Sui. Ruxian is also very young, so it's better for her to be tempered. Besides, the soul competition isn't over yet. Once it's over, we'll leave together. Sui nodded at Lin Shuangping, as if his words had extinguished Dan Hongong's anger. Although the words of comfort were said to Dan Hongong, Lin Shuangping's gaze was fixed on Sui, who was walking forward. She smiled and nodded. This is truly amazing. Next time, I must invite him to Shanghai. Lin Shuangping thought to herself. After that, Elder Mo and Elder Hong finished their discussion. Elder Mo's face was flushed red, and he could not suppress the excitement between his brows. His roar was like thunder, and the rolling sound waves rushed into everyone's mind. Everyone knew that the exciting moment was coming. Silence. I announce. Lingyue Peak's result. 9 Transformation Divine Pill. Ingredients. Super high grade. Pill recipe. Black high grade. Grade. Earth low grade. Heat control. Perfect. Cauldron. Black high grade. Overall score. Super A+. Elder Mo's voice was louder and louder, as if his painstaking work had finally appeared. Everyone was overwhelmed with pride and excitement. Instantly, everyone became excited with every standard. At this moment, Dan Hongong was like a deflated balloon. He slumped back in his chair, shaking his head with a bitter smile. Everyone's hearts were thumping wildly at this moment. When Elder Mo said Super A+, their eyes and emotions erupted like a volcano. Super A+. What the heck? Super A+ has never appeared in the history of the Heavenly Soul competition. What? 9 Transformation Divine Pill. It's the 9 Transformation Divine Pill. The legendary pill that can strengthen a primitive emperor and break through the shackles of a sky origin sect. It was really refined by Lingyue Peak. Moreover, because the 9 Transformation Dragon Scale Herb is extremely rare, it's said that it has a certain chance of forming the divine spiritual meridians in a sky origin sect. Sai, that's just a legend. This is a real benefit. That medicinal aura is extremely dense. This is the first time I've seen an Earth-grade pill. Even Han Wulong was shocked. He turned his head and looked at Han Yuro, who had a proud look on her face. Ro, did you really refine this? Of course. We're not done yet. We have more. Silence. Before Han Yuro could finish her words, Elder Mo and Elder Hong looked at the lively scene. The climax of the Heavenly Soul competition was fierce, and their faces were filled with joy. Their loud voices suppressed the audience. Elder Mo and Elder Hong talked nonstop. In order to be fair, they explained the evaluation of the 9 Transformation Divine Pill in front of everyone. The 9 Transformation Dragon Scale Herb is extremely rare, and this 9 Transformation Divine Pills grade is extremely perfect. Therefore, we gave it a super high-grade evaluation, and a high-grade Earth-grade pill was refined from a high-grade mystery-grade pill formula. This is the first time I've seen such perfect refining skills. If it weren't for the rules, Super A+ would be the lowest evaluation. Everyone was amazed and looked at Su, Yi, and Lingma Peak. Li Shiran, Ah Chu, and the rest were instantly surrounded by surprised gazes. They were a little embarrassed and blushed. Sitting in his seat, Su Yi was also very satisfied. He thought to himself, after the cultivation of my mysterious space's medicinal field, how can an ordinary perfect 9 Transformation Dragon Scale Herb compare to it? This low-grade Earth-grade pill is definitely deserved. Elder Mo and Elder Hong turned around with a serious expression. They no longer looked down on Su Yi as they looked at him and said seriously, Sect Master Su, this 9 Revolutions Spirit Refining Pill is of excellent quality. This time the two of us have seen wrongly. This old man apologizes for his words and actions just now. Elder Mo and Elder Hong were straightforward. Sui's impression of them changed instantly. Sui smiled and said, No. Elders, take a good look. There are 3 9 Transformation Divine Pills. When Sui saw the pills just now, he could already detect that there was not only 1 pill inside, but 3. That was why he said such words. What? The 2 elders' eyes lit up as if they had seen a ghost. They flew up to the high platform. Chapter 1705. After careful verification, Su Yi's words were indeed correct. The 2 poured out 2 identical black pills from the bottle. They were exactly the same pills that hadn't been peeled off yet. They were wrapped in black iron shavings. They looked very ordinary, but they tightly wrapped the medicinal properties of the pills. Ling Yefeng refined 3 9 Revolution Spirit refining pills at the same time. Everyone was shocked by Ling Yufeng once again. How is this possible? At the same time, under the same conditions, he actually refined 3 9 Transformation Spirit pills. This time, the dukes present were shocked again. Long Pasan said to Gua, Good boy, Gua, you are in the limelight this time. Luo Wuya said, Yes, it's too much. Guyue also didn't expect that these little guys from Ling Yufeng would bring him such a big surprise. Long Pasan and Luo Wuya stood up and walked to Guyu's side. Their gentle faces were filled with joy. Luo Wuya smiled and said, Brother Guyue, congratulations. I didn't expect that the little kid from Ling Yufeng would really succeed. Ha! Guyue and Long Pasan were puzzled. Long Pasan said, Can you tell us why you're so sure that he's a Xian great alchemist? Even Mo and Hong were wrong, but the palace master of Yutian Palace of Yuzhou saw through it with one glance. Luo Wuya smiled and looked at the 2. He said, I'm not very sure. It's just that there's a layer of rust on the outside. I once saw a weapon in our heavenly artifact house. It was also covered in rust, but it was an extremely sharp earth-grade divine artifact, and it was made with the blue flame Een Cauldron as the prize this time. Combined with what Su Yi told Shiran before entering the Broken Sword Sea, I was sure. The reason why I didn't say anything was because I took a gamble. Long Pasan pulled Guyue over and said, Old Luo is amazing. Guyue, you actually hit a treasure similar to the blue flaming cauldron? Not far away, a thunderous roar could be heard. Hong Mo announced at the same time, I declare the winner of the Imperial Soul Competition, Lingwei Peak. All of a sudden, their blood boiled. The people of Lingwei Peak were surrounded by everyone like stars surrounding the moon. The people from Lingwei Peak had experienced ups and downs in such a short period of time. They were still confused and could not believe what had happened. In the midst of the clamor, Elder Hong said to Su Yi, Sect Master Su, these 3 9 Revolutions God refining pills are all early-stage Earth grade, It's too shocking. May I ask who did this on Lingua Peak? This old man wishes to meet him. Earth-grade medicinal pills were naturally plentiful in Command Heavenly Palace, but to be able to concoct them under such dangerous conditions, in addition to time being tight, it was not something an ordinary person could speak of. Su Yi then called Han Yuro and the others to the stage. He pointed at Li Shiran, Chu, Tian Wu, and Han Yuro. Ran and Ah Chu are both descendants of the Li clan. Ran is half a step into heaven rank, while Ah Chu has a heaven rank soul. Ran is extremely sensitive to heat and medicinal properties. As for Tian Wu, you all know that he is Elder Gyue's personal disciple. He cultivates both alchemy and smithing and is extremely impressive. As for Miss Yuro, she is the apple of boundless sex eye. The quality of her soul is also extremely high. This time, Ran was the one who led the refinement, with Tian Wu and Yuro assisting from the side. Su Yi seized the opportunity to push them up so that they could have more praises and showcase Lingua Peak in front of everyone. Elder Hong and Elder Imo sized them up and nodded their heads in praise from time to time. Elder Hong's gaze finally landed on Li Shiran. Little girlie, this old man doesn't want to know about the herbs you obtained, but can this old man see what kind of furnace you used? Li Shiran was shocked at first, but she did not know what to do. She looked at Su Yi with a shy face and twirled the corner of her clothes with her fingertips. Ha ha, this old man understands. A furnace is the most treasured item for alchemists. There's no need to see it. Su Yi took a step forward and explained, Elder Hong, if Heavenly Pill House can teach Ran wholeheartedly in the future, this purple flame sun furnace can naturally be seen. This is Su Yi's first request. Hearing this, the two elders' hearts trembled and their eyes lit up. They knew that Su Yi deliberately said the words purple flame sun furnace and did not want to show it to Ran. It made their hearts itch, so they said directly, Gyue, this little girl Ran, you don't have to teach her alchemy in the future. Elder Hong and I will teach her. If you are willing, you can be our personal disciple from today onwards. We are already old, so Ran will be the only disciple of our closed alchemy sect. Gyue was naturally overjoyed. If Li Shiran could be taught by a pill master, she would definitely become an outstanding alchemy expert in the Heavenly Palace in the future. Then, he said, although I like Ran very much, I can't ask for more if she is favored by the two of you. However, Ran, you have to come back often at Lingua Peak. Li Ran, who was still in shock, did not know what was going on. Su Yi gently nudged her and said, Ran, quickly thank Master. Master, Master, Ran pays her respects. Elder Hong and Elder Imo smiled and helped Li Ran up. Their eyes were filled with joy. The more they looked at her, the more they liked her. The descendants of the Li family are indeed extraordinary. Li Ran grabbed Su Yi's arm tightly. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. Then, she bowed deeply to Elder Gyue. Oof, ridiculous. Dan Ruxian, who was standing at the side, saw that she was completely ignored. Even her close disciple was snatched away by someone else. She was so angry that she jumped off the stage and ran away. Behind her, Dan Honggong shouted, Ruxian. With a heavy sigh, Dan Honggong also circulated his primordial qi and chased after his granddaughter. What about the second request? Elder Hong Mo and Elder Imo looked at Su Yi. Su Yi took out the space bag that contained the Azure Flame Een Cauldron and gave it to Li Ran. He said, Elder, please help me merge these two cauldrons. This is my first gift to Ran. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. After merging, it would be the Imperial Heaven Cauldron. It was a legendary sacred artifact. With the Imperial Heaven Cauldron in hand, refining pills and refining tools would be extremely easy. It could also easily attract ancient remnant souls. It had many endless magical uses. Su Yi actually gave it to Li Ran so generously. But merging two cauldrons at the same time required an extremely abnormal amount of soul energy. Su Yi had already thought about it. This matter must be handed over to an absolutely powerful top expert, and Elder Hong Mo was the most suitable person. Sure, Ran. I hope you can study the alchemy book well under the two elders and win glory for your Li family. Achu's soul quality was higher than Li Shurran's. In the future, her soul cultivation would be higher than Li Shurran's. He had always hoped that Li Shurran would have the ability to protect herself while being invincible in alchemy. This way, he could be completely relieved. Understanding Su Yi's meaning, Li Shurran's tears flowed like a spring. Her pale lips were tightly pursed. You are now my close disciple. You're not allowed to cry. Su Yi smiled and gently scratched the tip of Li Shurran's nose. Chapter 1706. In fact, only Su Yi knew that he was making it up to his long-lost sister. Su won. Good, 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 the two elders said excitedly. The other half of the Een cauldron has not been found in the heavenly artifact house. Although it is a celestial artifact, it can only be reduced to the high grade of the mystery grade. It is difficult for experts to take it seriously. Sect Leader Su is so virtuous. I admire you. Without waiting for an explanation, Elder Hong and Elder Mo took Li Shurran to the side and carefully questioned her about what had happened during the refining process. They were so interested that they did not pay attention to anyone else. Great! Chu was very excited. Seeing that her sister could be taught by experts, Chu was very happy. In the distance, Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flickered. She kept thinking to herself, this guy is so nice to others. Then, the inexplicable jealousy disappeared, and her face became calm again. Duanmu Xiaoman urged, okay, let's move on to the next item. On the other side, Long Pasan was still chatting with Guyue. Guyue waved his robe and came to the center. The others had already left the stage. Let the competition begin. It was still the same 3 boxes, which contained the same weapons used by the 3 teams for training. Everyone began to hold their breaths. He had already gotten 3 first places. Countless pairs of eyes were like wolves and tigers. They were eyeing the red silk covetously. As long as there was Lingyue Peak's name, it would be half the battle. At this moment, Lingyue Peak's matter seemed to have become everyone's matter. Tian Wu and Chu were also very nervous. The red silk fluttered in Guyue's strong wind. Everyone burst into cheers. Yes, yes, there's Lingyue Peak's name. Lingyue Peak is here. Ha! Lingyue Peak is here. Will there be 4 first places? I'm looking forward to it. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the 3 wooden boxes were for the 11th team, the 53rd team, and Lingyue Peak. Guyue let out a long sigh of relief. His hands were trembling. Would the legendary 4 first places really come to Lingyue Peak? It was unbelievable. Since they had just experienced such an exciting alchemy competition, everyone couldn't hold themselves back and stood up one after another. The same procedure was carried out in the equipment forging competition. The Heavenly Artifact House's tool-wielding elder would examine the equipment. On the other hand, the results of the 11th and 53rd squads paled in comparison to the intensity of the refining process. The 11th squad had forged a mysterious grade mid-tier spirit weapon, while the 53rd squad had forged a mysterious grade high-tier Dao artifact. Weapons were divided into 7 levels: Heaven, Earth, Mystic, Yellow, Stars, and Moon. They were further divided into 3 levels: Primary, Intermediate, and Advanced. They were divided into 7 levels: Mortal, Origin, Xian, Spirit, Dao, Magic, and Saint. Therefore, on the whole, due to the suddenness of the incident and the lack of time, the entire refining team did not perform at an extremely high level even though they had a completion rate. When the first 2 results came out, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. Everyone was looking forward to Ling Yufeng's results. TSK, TSK. Only Lingyue Peak is left. I'm so excited. Everyone looked sideways at the 2 tool-wielding elders. As soon as the box was opened, a sharp roar accompanied by a sharp golden aura soared into the sky. A small dagger broke out of the box. It was as fast as lightning swaying and flying in the air. The dagger was filled with fiery patterns. There were also several sparkling and translucent blood patterns on it, which were obviously caused by the blood aura. The dagger was entirely red, as if it had just been pulled out of a soldering iron. It was extremely red and translucent. It kept waving in the air, piercing through the air. In an instant, it brought along a long tongue of flame, which was extremely eye-catching. What a small dagger, Guyue praised. In an instant, a pitch-black space crack was cut open. The biting, cold, killing intent on its edge made everyone tremble for no reason. A mysterious grade high-tier celestial artifact. The tool-wielding elder's calm face finally showed a gratified smile. The celestial artifact had already become a spirit and had its own independent consciousness. It could break through space and kill. It could protect its owner and also be an excellent assistant for its owner to kill enemies. A mysterious grade high-tier celestial artifact was already the highest level of a weapon other than the heaven and earth grade. Without a doubt, it was the best among the three. A celestial artifact that has become a spirit. Everyone was shocked. Below the stage, Tianwu also let out a long breath and high-fived Chu. As the last item, the pressure on the two of them was actually the greatest. Finally, I didn't let down Su Yi, who gave me so many soul-testing crystals and heavenly treasures. It's naturally not a problem for it to become a spirit. This crimson fire divine blade didn't disappoint. Then, when the tool-wielding elder announced that Lingyue Peak was still the winner of the competition, a shocking piece of news began to spread all over the place. First place in all 4 items. Lingyue Peak monopolized it. Shock lingered in everyone's heart. They all thought that they had misheard and didn't know how to express the shock in their hearts. At this moment, the onlookers were all dumbfounded. Even Guyue couldn't believe this fact. Lingyue Peak won the Heavenly Soul competition. Su Yi, you've won first place in all 4 items. Duanmu Xiaoman's voice was still calm, like an ancient well without ripples as she spoke to everyone, as if she was reminding Su Yi. Junhao Yin, you're not guilty. Duanmu added. Wow! Everyone was shocked. At this moment, Lingyue Peak had become the focus of everyone. Duanmu's words meant that the soul competition was over. Everyone surrounded Lingyue Peak. For the first time, Lingyue Peak was basking in endless glory. He became the center of everyone's envy and jealousy. Master, we did it! Everyone from Lingyue Peak shed tears of excitement. Tianwu, Chu, and the others rushed to the front of the stage and knelt before Guyue, kowtowing heavily. All the humiliation from before was resolved at this moment. Lingyue Peak was invincible. He had reached a peak that Heavenly Palace had never reached before. At the same time, Su Yi's invincible cheers resounded through the sky. In the distance, banners fluttered. Heavenly Palace welcomed the loudest cheers since it was built. It was a cheers that didn't match the calm personalities of cultivators. At this moment, the elders had already made way for the people from Lingyue Peak. They smiled at Guyue as he patted Tianwu and the others. Tears flowed down his face as he said, Good, good, good. You're all good kids. I'm proud of you all. Lingyue Peak is proud of you all. In addition, Lin Shuangping and Long Pasan were looking at Su Yi in the corner. Su Yi's face was full of smiles. He was extremely happy. Only Su Yi himself knew how much he owed Guyue and Lingyue Peak. This time, he was going to take it all back for Lingyue Peak. He was going to take back everything that Lingyue Peak had lost with interest. Su Yi had accomplished the 3 things that Heavenly Palace wanted to do. After coming out of the Broken Sword Sea, he finally saw his grandfather. He had also refined the 9 transformation divine pill. In the end, he even won back Elder Guyue. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.